おはようございます。
おはようございます。
Hello everyone。第68回 Final Fantasy XIV プロデューサーレターライブをお送りいたします。Thank you very much for tuning in to Final Fantasy XIV Letter from the Producer Live number 68。皆さんに自己紹介お願いします。Please introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Naoki Yoshida, producer and director of Final Fantasy XIV。皆さんおはようございます。そしてこんばんはな人も多いですね。Final Fantasy XIV プロデューサー兼ディレクターの吉田です。よろしくお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。そして本日進行を務めますコミュニティチームモルボルこと室内です。よろしくお願いします。My name is Toshio Muroshi, also known as Foxconn. You are global community producer here.I will do the MC stuff for today's live letter. はい。そして、本日はですね、本日の、プロデュ PLL も、日本語と英語のバイリンガル放送でお送りいたしますので、我らがあゆみさんがスクエニアメリカオフィスから入ってくださっております。So once again, today's letter live is fully bilingual in both Japanese and English. So we have a special member from Square Enix America office. あゆみさんです。おはようございます。
おはようございます。スクエアニックスアメリカの徳武あゆみです。通訳を務めさせていただきます。よろしくお願いします。Hello everyone, this is Aimi from the Square Enix Los Angeles office. I'm going to be supporting for the translations today.
はい。で本日の、PLL はですね、このセットアップをご覧になった方もいるかと思いますが、吉田さんが話したことは、あゆみさんが通訳してくださいます。で私が喋ることは私が自分で、翻訳しながら進めていきますので、で私からは大して重要な話は出ませんので、私が私のことを翻訳し忘れてるなというのはスルーしておいていただければと思いますのでよろしくお願いします。So today's setup is 吉田さんexplain things in Japanese and then あゆみさん will do 吉田さん 's voice in English and I will translate myself。 はい、そして今日の PLL はですね、前半戦はFinal Fantasy XIV の新たなる挑戦、次の10年に向けてということで吉田さんからいろいろご説明いただきます。そして後半はですね休憩挟みまして後半は、フォーラムで事前に募集しました、パッチ 6.0 をプレイしてみての、Q&A セッションをお送りしたいと思います。So today's letter live has two major parts and then first half is the kind of presentation by producer director Naoki Yoshida, which is where we are and where we are going for next 10 years.And then we have a taking break, and then latter half is the Q&A session based on your gameplay of 6.0 expansion.
はい。
はい、ということで、始めてまいりたいと思います。
ですね、私がこっちを見てるとき、こうなってるときは皆さんのコメントを見てるときなので、今日こういうシチュエーションすごい多いと思うんで、ご理解ください。
So you might see me turning my head sometimes when I'm speaking, but I'm actively looking at the comments that people are making as you watch the stream. So you may see me turn this way, but I am still participating. So just wanted to let you know.
まあちょっとね、日本のコメントでね、この手の通訳放送はテンポ悪いんだよなって言ってる人いるんですけど、まあグローバル全体でねお届けしているので。吉田の長い話をですね、あゆみさん一生懸命ね通訳してくれてるんで、そこはね、それを言われると我々ちょっと悲しくなるんで、そういうまあファンフェスのステージぐらいで思って見てもらえると嬉しいかな。
And we do see some comments about how translations kind of drag on the pace. It doesn't feel as quick, but I mean, it's here to try to facilitate communicating Yoshida's comments. It makes us sad if you're disappointed that it's in two languages, but perhaps if you look at it like a FanFest stage event where we have the Japanese and English, maybe that might help it make it more fun.
あとコメントで今日は 6.1 はがっつりじゃないんですかっていうのもあるんですが、So we see some comments. Do we have any further updates for 6.1? So 6.1 がっつりってことだけはないんですよね。
そうですね、パッチ 6.1 の内容と紹介に関しては、3月4日、
はい、4日です
に、パッチ 6.1 特集パート1の PLL をやる予定なので 6.1 のまあでも今日ちょっと出ますけどね、6.1 の詳しいところはそっちに譲ります。
So yeah, today's broadcast is not literally going to be just about 6.1.
6.1
we
내용이
may
아니래요.
touch upon it, but then
조금은
the
나오긴
details
한데
are going to be
6.1에
explained
관해서는
on
나오는 게
another
아니고
episode of the
아까
live
뭐
letter
얼핏 들은
on
거는
March the
이후 뭐
4th.
10년에
This is
대해서 뭐 그런 거
JST.
얘기하려면
But we will go into details at that
후반에는 6.2년
timing.
관해서 얘기한다네요.
あとはまあなんかこう重大発表的なねニュアンスで取られてるけど楽しく気楽に行くので皆さんもですね緊張せず気楽に今日は見てもらえると嬉しいです。
And some people might be bracing for a very important
중대 발표 마냥
announcement
그런
when
느낌
we
되는
talk
것
about
같은데
today's broadcast.
그냥
But
편안하게
that's
보라고
not the
하시네요.
intent. We would love for you to just
6.1
relax
뭐
and just
나올
have
줄
fun with the
알았는데 오늘이
broadcast.
아니구나. 6.1은 3월
なんかこういうこと言うたびにさよしやめんのみたいなの出るんだよなついに俺さでもいつだっけ新情報発表会でさ言ったばっかだよねライフワークだって言ってるんでそういう話じゃないんですよ。
And I understand we were talking about like the future of Final Fantasy XIV, but every time we mention something like that, people are like, "Oh no, is Yoshida going to quit?" And no, I think I told this when we were doing our announcement showcase in February. It's like 14 is my life work. It's not like I'm going to just up and leave suddenly.
もうそんなんで嘘つきってやるの嫌だからなんだろうそんなね自分の去就をね重大発表をしますみたいなねことは言わないですよ。
ちょっと恥ずかしいね。
うん。
I mean, I don't want people to be going around saying, "Oh, you're such a liar," because I mean, I'm not the type of person who would make these kinds of like my
지금 그냥
personal
잡담
announcements
같은 거
on a
하고
live
있어요.
stream. So.
さあでは、やっていきましょうか早速。前半だいたいね2時間ぐらい、後半も多分2時間ぐらい
와
使うんじゃないかなと思います。
전반 후반 2시간씩
ご飯
한다네.
食べたりですね
2시간씩 못하는데
今日土曜日なんで飲める人はお酒飲みながらとかでも全然いいので、楽しくいきましょう。
So we're looking at least for the first part, we're looking at about 2 hours broadcast. And so just you're free to do like you have dinner or like eat lunch as you're watching the broadcast. It is a Saturday, so if you want to start drinking early, you're more than welcome to do so.
さあ行きましょう。では、画面切り替えてもらっていいかな。はい。はい。じゃあ早速いきますが、改めて今日お話しする内容のトピックおさらいしておきましょう。
Okay, so jumping right in, let me go over the topics we will cover.
で、まず一つ目はちょっとですね、まあ14これまで、正確にはね11年やってきているので、まあちょっと振り返りを最初にね、皆さんへの感謝も込めて、やりたいと思います。
The first topic, of course, it's been about 11 years, to be accurate, how long 14 has been going on. So we'd like to kind of do a little bit of a retrospect, just convey our thanks to our players and look back on everything.
그런 거면 중대 발표라고 안 할 거라고 했는데
まあちょっとこの先じゃあさらにもう10年は僕続けたいと思ってるんで、まあ、この先10年さらに14を発展させていくために、まあ、新しい挑戦やっていきますよといろいろそこについてまあどんなことやっていくのかというのをお知らせしたいと思います。
And then once we do look back on our past, then we look forward
그냥
to the next 10
돌아보기랑
years. Because as I mentioned, I would love to continue having Final Fantasy XIV for yet another 10 years. So there are many different things that we want to do in order to continue expanding Final Fantasy XIV, many challenges that we want to take on. So I want to touch upon some of those items in today's broadcast.
でここまでいったら1回休憩を挟んで、放送の後半として3つ目、パッチ 6.0 行月のフィナーレ、プレイしてみて何かありますかというので Q&A 事前に質問募集していましたのでそれに対していろいろお答えしていこうかなと思っています。
2시간 뒤에 후반부에서는 패치 6.0 휴어럴 피날레 Q&A를 연다고
and then
해요.
it'll go into the latter half of the show where we kind of asked the players, what did you think after playing 6.0? And so we will do a bit of an Endwalker Q&A.
あと10年から吉田リビングデッドを使う気だなみたいなコメントがあったりね。
10년 뒤 요시다 리빙
We're seeing
들었을 것
comments
같아.
like, oh, 10 more years, huh? Is Yoshida going to kick off his living dead?
まああったよね確かにね。吉田の量産を開始しましたとか、クローンの吉田が誕生したのを紹介しますとか、そういうの
クローン吉田
書かれてましたね。
But yeah, I think I've seen comments similar to that, and like people saying, "Oh, we have mass manufactured Yoshida clones."
でなぜか私はもう完了してますよって書いてあるんですよ。
そう。
Yeah, then I say I've done already. So something like that.
옆에 있는 사람은 이미 됐대.
では早速いきましょうか。まずはまあ正確にはね11年なんですけど、
자꾸 오른쪽에 있으니까 내가
まあ
가린다.
10年
여기로
ここ
가자.
まで皆さんとねやってきたのをちょっと振り返っていきたいと思います。
Okay, so jumping into the timeline here. Of course, I accurately it's 11 years, but like we'll call this the 10 years of Final Fantasy 14.
まあいろいろありましたね。まあ2010年サービスを開始して、その12月に運営体制ね全部開発も、一新して、僕はここから参加ですね。
So first, 2010
2010
was when it all started.
9월 30일
Many things that
합반 14
happened
버전
had
1.0
caused
정식
us to
서비스하고
sort of reconsider the development structures, and there was
12월 10일
a lot of changes that were
뭐야,
made in order to kind of
캐릭터 너무 가린다. 내
reboot
캐릭터 버리자,
the
그냥.
title. So this is when I joined in. Yoshida joined into the project.
で2021年の
12월 11일 날 이제 새로
2011
만든
年の
그
10月
팀들
14日に、
구하고
まあ、14日が縁起がいいだろうっていうので申請をやりますよという発表してますね。
2011년 10월 14일
And then
합판 14가
2011,
망하고.
October 14th, we were thinking 14th
아니구나.
must bring us good luck.
10월
And that's
14일 날
when we
만든다고 한
announced
거구나.
that we are
그리고
going to have Final Fantasy 14 reborn.
2012년 11월
皆
11일
さん
날
詳しいよね。
파판 14 서비스 종료.
あゆみさんもインタビューに言ってくれたと思うけど、
13년도 2월 하순
9番を遊んでみたいので9番のサーバーを復活させる気ありませんかって、クラシックファイナルファンタジー14やる気ありませんかって、ナイトメアって答えたやつみんな覚えてて、
2013년 8월
ナイトメアってすげえ言ってるコメントで。
1.0 정식 서비스.
I love how the comments from the West are. I love how they know all these details, and I'm sure Amy had sat into the interviews as well. But people were asking about, oh, are you going to make an FF14 1.0 classic like WoW Classic did theirs? And Yoshida answered, Nightmare. And so people are calling the time of 1.0 in Nightmare. It's awesome.
でまあ2012年の11月11日にですね、時代の終焉トレーラー公開とともにですね、一旦申請の準備のために Q14 のサービスを、終了させていただい
내가
てます。
언제 했더라? 14년도 초에
And of
했었나?
course, in November
13년도
11th
말에
of 2012, we titled it The End of an Era, and we sort of
제가
closed
이 게임을
the
군대
service
다녔을
for
때거든요.
the
상병
original
달고서
version of Final Fantasy
상병
14.
거의
まあ、9番
끝에쯤에
からねやってくださってる方も結構いるし、9番の捉え方って結構、まちまちだとは思うんですけど、9番の、ラスト付近はそれはそれでまた独特の、ゲームデザインの MMO として結構ね好きだった、面白くなったんだよって言ってくれる人たちもたくさんいて、まあ、僕らシャットダウンするのを決めながらも作ってたところに対してそういうね評価をもらってたりするのはとてもありがたいことなので、僕らもすごいね実は励みになってました。
And of course, people who have been playing since
이런
the
게임도 없을
original
거야. 자기네 게임
1.0
망했다고 다시
may
새로
have their
만들겠습니다
different
하면서
opinions
서비스
about
종료시킨 다음에
how the
부활시키는
game
거.
had played. But there were people who thankfully acknowledged how 14 was starting to shift, and they did take
그것도
notice
지금
about how
요시다가
the
그
game
당시에
design was
이제
unique.
다시
Despite
하겠습니다라고 하고 위에서
we
컴펌
were
내려줘가지고
looking to
가능했던 거지.
sunset the original
그거 안
version,
됐어.
and so it was wonderful that people acknowledged that, and that was very encouraging for us as a team.
ちなみに9番から今日視聴してくださってる方でQ14 からやってるよって方、どうですか？手を挙げてもらってもいいですか？
So if I could have people in the comments, by show of hands, I don't know how you raise your hands, but like anybody who's been playing since 1.0, the original Final Fantasy 14, we would love to see who's been with us since then.
めっちゃい
す
るな。
ごい There's a lot.
2010년이면 진짜 벌써 12년 전이네.
Thank you very
와,
much.
시간 진짜 빨리 간다.
すごいありがたい。
That's amazing. Thank you guys.
まあここからねあと10年お互い健康に気をつけて楽しんでいきましょう。
But yeah, we're looking forward to the next 10 years. So yeah, let's all take care of our health and keep going.
파파망
That's
언제부터
awesome.
했더라 나 기억도 안 난다.
で、2013年ですね、ベータテストやりながら、2013年8月27日についに新生オルゼア正式サービス開始することができました。
So moving on, 2013, we start our beta testing for A Realm Reborn, and then August 27 of the
방송을
same
했다가 안
year,
했다가 했다가 안
we
했다가
were able
이래가지고.
to relaunch as A Realm Reborn.
振り返るとですね、2011年の3月ぐらいから一気に新生14の設計だけ5人ぐらいで設計をスタートして、2011年の6月から、
오래 했다.
6人のプログラマーがコードを書き始めたのを覚えてるので、実質そこから2年2ヶ月で新生リリースしてるので、もうちょっと驚異的今振り返ると。
이 방송을
And looking
취미로 하다
back,
보니까
so
하다가
it
안 할
was
때가 있고.
2011 in March. We started at least doing the framework, just the design structure first. And it was a very small team that worked on it. It was 5 people who started on the base framework. And then starting June of that same year,
새로운 정보가
2011,
있기는
we had
한데
6
새 정보보다는
programmers starting to write code. And considering it
전체적으로
took about
되돌아보고
2 years and 2 months
이후
to
어떻게 할까 약간 이런
relaunch,
느낌이에요.
that's just
뭔가 정확히 뭐
incredible.
6.0 파트 1 이런 게 아니라
で、念願だったですねファンフェスっていうのを2014年の10月からですね、スタートすることができました。今でも覚えてます。
6.1 파트 1은 3월 4일 날인데요. 그때 이제 얘기하는 거기 때문에
October, we were able to
민영님
hold our very first fan
10년치 이제
festival. That was something that we
되돌아보기하고
really
10년
wanted
후에
to
미래
do.
보기 약간 이런 식으로 할 거래요.
初めてやった北米のファンフェスの基調公演でステージに上がった時の大歓声で足が震えて
6월 23일
I
창천
still
20월도가
remember it
나오고
today. The
8월
first time we did our
21일
fan festival, and we started
500만
out
돌파.
in the North America region. And when I took the
2017년
stage to do
6월
my
20일
keynote presentation, and
홍련의
just the cheer that I
뭐였냐?
received from the audience, man, my
홍련의
legs were
방사
shaking when I was up
나오고
there.
8월 8일
で初の拡張であるヘブンズワード、2015年の6月にリリースして、
2018년
そ
8월
の後
30일
の8
1,400만
月
돌파 5월
に、
24일
全世界
1,600만
累計登
돌파
録者数が500万人を突破したと。
아니요 3월
And then
4일
next, we were able to launch our first
상가스
ever expansion
욕하면은
pack,
3월
Heaven's
4일
Word,
맞나요?
in 2015 June, and then soon after, we reached
다녔던
5
확장품에서
million
그러니까.
registered players.
でこのあたりはですね、我々開発チームもですね、高難易度高難易度って言われてよしやっちゃるぞって言って
제가 오늘은 레터라이브 할 줄도
のを
몰랐어요.
やったらですね、
진짜
いや難しすぎんだろ
좀
って
이따가
なってです
공대
ね、
뛰어야 되거든.
我々
공대
も
뛰어가지고
いろいろ
이제
な
뭐야
失敗を
살짝
繰り
잘까
返しつつ
하다가
です
봤는데
ね、
갑자기
今に
알람이
つながって
온
る
거야.
本当重要な時期だったと思います。
뭐 딴 거 하나 그럴 때만 좀 이따가 레터라이브 할 거라고
This
시험
is
방송
around
킨
the
거라고
time when
해가지고
people were starting to clamor
레터라이브야?
for higher
그래서
difficult content.
뭐
That the dev
레터라이브.
team got so excited about. Oh yeah, you want difficult? And so we
그나마
gave you
다행인
really,
게
really tough
일단은 그
content,
뭐야
and people started complaining now about, oh no, this is too difficult. Yoshida, this is too
정보
difficult. And
공개
so we
이런
were trying to
것보다는
find
일단
that
다른 거기
balance. It was
때문에
trial
그나마 좀
and error
다행이긴
trying to
한데
get to that
근데
nice
이따가
balance. But I think
6.1
it
얘기
was really
조금은 할
important that we're
거래요. 할
making that
거래요.
conversation.
왜냐면은 이 이후에 10년 얘기도 할 거기 때문에 아마 거기서 나올 것
学んだん
같아요.
ですよ。プレイヤーの皆さんにはいやちょっと簡単だったなって言われるぐ
오늘
らい
레터 좀
ちょうどいい
길어요.
んだなと。
이거 뭐야 10년 되돌아보기랑 10년 후 보기를
Then it
2시간
was then
동안
that I
하고
learned this very
후반부에 Q&A가
valuable lesson, which is I think
Q&A
it's best
2시간 할
to
거래요.
keep the difficulty
오늘
where the players
4시간짜리야.
would walk out of it saying, that was pretty easy.
で、グレンドリベレーターを発売したのが2017年6月で、まあ、この辺りからようやくこうバトルコンテンツ以外の
저는 근데 하다가 아마
40の世界に住むみたいなことをより具体化していけるようになったのがこのぐらいの時期で、まあ、それがね、
전반부하고 끌 거기 때문에 혹시라도 Q&A 따로 보고 싶으신
この時点
분은
で1000万人突破。
죄송하지만 다른 방송이나 직접 보시는 걸.
Then, of course, Stormblood released in 2017 June, and we started looking at various
조작사가
other
끝났으니
types of
어떻게 이어가죠?
content
그러게요.
aside
조작
from
끝났으면 이제
battle
뭐해?
and combat, content that would involve the feeling of living in the world of Final Fantasy XIV. And I think that really
적이
struck a
사라져버린
chord
거잖아.
with people. People were resonating with it, which thankfully got us to our
아니구나,
registered
제노스
player
있구나.
number up to 14 million players.
아니다. 잠깐만. 제노스
思い
어때?
出されるグレンのリベレーター初日のねラウバーン透滅戦
すごかったですね。
And I still remember when Stormblood first launched, Rauban
아 그러네요.
Extreme.
다른 세계 세대 살리기 그런 것도 되겠네.
ありましたね
And I think we all remember that.
まあ、あの失敗があってね今の安定した
이스
キューリン
시리를
グシステムがあ
이상
ったりす
얘기할
るから
필요는
ね
없지만 나도 그렇긴 하죠.
But I mean, even with that failure, we learned from it, and we were able to build a much better
근데
queuing system.
파파는 시리즈가 이스처럼 이어지지 않잖아요. 그래서 파파는 항상 시리즈마다 메인 빌런이 있고 메인 빌런 끝내면은 끝났다. 파파는 끝 약간 이런 식이어가지고
突破して、2019年
이게 메인 스토리를 끝낸 게 지금 그러니까 메인 빌런을 잡은 게 파판 10이라고 14밖에 없는데 11은
So
어떻게
I'm
됐지?
sorry, this is where we hit
11은 아예 몰라서 모르겠다.
14 million is 2018 August, and then moving on, we reach 16 million players by
보통 파파는
2019
그거잖아. 뭐
May.
신적인
So
존재라든가
thank
그런
you
거에
so
의해서
much
세상을
for all
구한다
the
약간
players
이런
that are
거잖아요.
staying with us.
그러다 보니까 그 존재가 죽게 되면 엔딩이 나왔던
そ
건데
して続けてですね2019年に、漆黒のヴィランズを発売し
그런 의미는 좀
末に
클 것
はです
같기도
ね
해요.
全世界
메인
累計
보통
登録者
따라가던
数が
그
1800万人を、
루트를 넘어가게 되는
突
거니까
破となりました
11은 엔딩 먹고 개발 손동물 아 그래요?
And moving on, we released Shadowbringers in 2019.
자 봅시다. 2019년 7월 2일
we surpassed
빌런즈.
18 million registered
가
players.
발매되고 12월 14일 마찬가지로
数字に
1800명
関して
돌파
言うと、単純に数字
2020년
だけを
7월
こ
22일
う見ていく
2000만
と
돌파
その
2021년
なんていうの
2500만
増えるペースっていうのがばらついてるようにまあ見えるのかもしれないんですけど
현재
実は
진행형인
体験したことのある人が増え
2021년
れば増え
12월
る
7일 날
ほど
나온
新規が当然減るんですよね。
はい。
パイ
そうね
が決まってるところから新しい人を呼ばなきゃいけないのでだからここまでの数字になってるのにさらに数百万増やしていくっていうこと自体は
ね
とてもすごいことでこれは本当ね
참 대단해.
開発
어떻게 이렇게 오랫동안
チームの努力もそうなんですけどマーケティング PR チーム
꾸준히
が、
이렇게
ね、
확장팩
コミュニティの
내주고
皆さんと一緒
재밌게
にな
해주고
って
하니까
達成してきてる数字なので本当にこれはね誇らしい数字だと思って
이게
ます。
특히나 한국인이면은 업데이트를 하게 되면은
Looking at the
금방금방
numbers,
컨텐츠를 소모하기
it might
때문에 엄청
seem
기다리고
like
있는데
there's no real nothing of note.
가뜩이나
Oh yeah,
이번에
the
또
numbers
코로나
are
때문에
just
또 이틀을
increasing. But if you consider this, if we have a certain number of people already playing the game, and if we have a single pie that we're taking numbers out of, like you would expect the numbers to start going down, but it's interesting that we see more and more players join us even after all these years. We are seeing millions signing up. So, of course, I really want to acknowledge the development team, operations team, but also the marketing and PR teams working with the
궁금한 게
community
팝판 14
to
다음 또
kind of
온라인이
promote the
나올까?
title and get
나오면
the word
언제쯤
out.
나올까?
So I'm very proud of their achievements.
そして2021年、去年ですね、12月2日にはですね全世界累計登録者数が2500万人を突破しちょっと昨日の数字とかは見てないですけどまだ全然まだ上がってってると思うので、で12月7日ですねすいません2週間ほどちょっと遅延をさせていただくことにはなってしまいましたが、行月のフィナーレを発売して、ハイデリンゾディアーク編完結というところまでこぎつけてこられたなと。
And of course, 2021, which is last year, we surpassed 25 million
10년
registered
망한다
players.
흥한다
I did not see
10년은
yesterday's
망할
numbers
것
or
같지
like
않아.
as of
스토리를
yesterday's
진짜
numbers,
개판으로
but
쓰지
I
않니,
do understand that our numbers are
팝판
still
스토리의
increasing.
전투가 데빌
And then
메이크라야 재미가 없을 수가 없어.
afterwards, I know we had to delay the release by about 2 weeks.
데메크가-
Again, apologies for
데메크
the
5
delay,
이번에
but
스토리
we
좀
were able
망했다고
to
이딴 소리
release
하더라도 데메크를
Endwalker,
스토리로
and
하는 사람은
finally we were
없잖아요.
able to conclude the overarching story of
때리고
Hydaelyn
부수고
and
쏘고
Zodiac.
작살내는 맛으로 하지.
まあ長かったようで僕は結構あっという間の11年でした。でも本当にね、世界中のプレイヤーの皆さん、光の選手の皆さん、メディアの皆さんもね、関係各社の皆さんにも本当にものすごくこんなに支えてもらうタイトルは他にないだろうと思うぐらい支えていただいてここまで来れたので、改めて本当に感謝をお伝えしたいと思います。ありがとうございます。
그러냥 바보.
And
안
it feels
들리지롱.
like a long time, but man, these
하여튼
11
나중에
years
프로젝트
went by very
이브킹이랑 하실
quickly
거고
for
저거
me.
영상 한번 봤는데
And all
그렇지
of
지금
our
기억이 안
warriors
나네요.
of light, our players, members
뭐,
of the media, all
저는
of our
재밌으면
supporting
합니다.
partner companies as well.
이해차
There were just
시작이네.
so many people that supported us throughout this all. So I do want to take this
약간 그 뭐지
opportunity to
마양전처럼
convey
그런 것도
my
웃기겠다.
gratitude from the
여지껏
bottom
다
of my
구했는데
heart. So I sincerely
리셋돼가지고
thank everybody.
원래 하던 방향이 아니라 다른
あと
방향으로
は本当に
세계를
開
다시
発チームに
구한다는 거.
も本当に厳しいスケジュールでやってきててまあ実は拡張パッケージそのものの開発期間って1年とか、下手すると
지금 현 상태에서 가장
切ってたり
기대되는
するんで
게임은 그거밖에
まあ
없어요.
本当に頑張ってきてもら
엘든링.
いました。
엘든님하고는 딱히
And
찌면은
I
게
also want to
없습니다.
acknowledge the development team as well. They were always working against a very harsh schedule, and even developing some of our expansion packs. Sometimes we have only about a year or even less than a year to get through all of the tasks that needed to get done. So I really want to show my appreciation to them as well.
さてではこれを踏まえてですね、ここまで歩んできたその11年、9番の状態を考えればこれ以上ないぐらいの成功をさせていただいたと思
뭔가
って
딱히
ます。
중요한 게 없고 그냥 수다 떨다가 우리도 그냥 수다 떨게
隠さず
되네요.
に成功できてると思ってるのでそれでいいと思ってるんですけど、まあここまではある意味もう過去になったので、ここからさらに次の10年また挑戦を続けていきたいと思います。
앞으로 10년 동안
And
좀 더
looking at
도전을 하고
the
싶다는데 그때까지
trajectory
요시다가
here and
제발
the path
멀쩡하게
we've
건강히
walked
잘 지냈으면
down,
좋겠다.
I think I want
저런
to consider
디렉터를
this a
만나는 게
success from
진짜
what we had
스알
taken
가차보다 힘든 거라.
and what state it was in when we had first taken on the project
네,
and to bring
들었어요.
it to where it is
한섭
now. I'm not ashamed
맞아, 저는 한섭에 돌아갈
to
생각이
declare
없기
it.
때문에
It might be a little
이게
awkward in the
의미가 없지 않나.
Japanese, but I believe it is a success, and I think it's a good thing that we've gotten here. But now that we have gotten this far, all of this is now in the past, and so we want to look to the future. We want to see what kind of challenges we can take on.
というわけで2つ目のセクションである14の新しい挑戦と題してですね、まあ、今後どういうことをやっていくよというのをお伝えしていきたいと思います。
어떤 걸 할 건가에 대해
So, for the
이야기를
second part
해주신다고
of this
해요.
presentation, as you see, it is
자,
entitled
지금부터 오역이
Newfound
좀 쩔 거니까
Futures. So I
일본의
would like to discuss
능력자분들이나
what we are intending
다른
to
분들
do.
도와주시면
まずですね、
감사드려요.
僕としてはですね、社長からやめろって言われるか、まあ、やめろって言われても抵抗するとは思うんですけど開発チーム運営チームからやめろって言われるか死ぬかぐらいの以外では14をやめる気がなく続けていきますんで、この先もぜひ皆さんよろしくお願いします。
앞으로 10년
And me
동안
personally, as Yoshida,
요시다가 사장님이 그만
unless
야매로
the
해도
CEO
자기는
says,
저항할
Yoshida, you
거래.
need to leave, and
걔도
even then, I
알겠대요.
think I'm going to fight him. Or if like the development team, the operations team want to kick me
팀들이 막
out, or if
말리고
I
하지 마요 해도
God
자기는
forbid
할
die,
거래.
those are the only extreme cases I would even consider leaving the 14 project. I want to continue working on Final Fantasy 14, so your continued support will definitely be appreciated.
というわけでですね、まず今回その10年さらにこう14をせっかくねここまで日本初のそのサービスでこの規模まで来れるってなかなかあることじゃないので、この先の10年に向けてまずは 7.0 をめがけて、新しいことに挑戦していこうと思ってます。
이전 우선은
Of course, with
눈앞의
this
목표는
title,
7.0 뭔가
and
새로운
considering
거를
that this
도전하려고
game
하는데요.
was launched from a
새로운 거뭘
Japanese
도전할까?
development studio, and being able to expand to this global scope, it's a rarity, I think. And so my next goal, my future goal, is now looking at 7.0 and leading up to that, what can we do?
コメントが 7.0 って言ったかで
大丈夫大丈夫、もうシナリオ会議の1回目やったから、合宿やったから、
ああ
7.0 はやるよ。
People are already speculating
벌써
about, oh no,
7.6
7.0 confirmed? Well, I mean, we are already talking about scenario for 7.0. I'm not afraid to say
항상
that
앞에
we
숫자가
do intend on
바뀌면
doing a
가장 궁금한 게
7.0.
그거예요.
まずここに
직업을
向け
뭘
て
가질까?
ちょっとコンセプトを話をさせてもらいま
컨셉
す。
얘기한대요.
まずその一つ目がこちらになります。
Now, that being said, I do want to
민나데
establish what my
뭐?
thinking is and the concept behind what we're trying to do leading up to 7.0. And this is the first point.
まあこれ具体的にどういうことっていうのを
一人でも
ちゃん
一つの뭐야?
とお話ししようと思います。
And of course, I will go into detail as to what this exactly means.
そしてですね、7.0 に向けて、チャレンジとしてですね、こちら、第1次グラフィックスのアップデートの準備開発っていうのをやっていきます。
And then next, again, leading up
혼자서
to
즐기고,
7.0, and one of the challenges that we want to take on is our
저기 딱 그런 것 같아요.
first
히토리
graphical
데모,
update,
민나
at
데모
least
할
the
때
preparation and the development
하나면은
for it.
혼자서는 이제 일본 특유의 그 콘솔 갬는 그쪽이고 민나 데모는 이제 그 일본 제외하고 해외.
And of course, when we dive
내가
into
글로벌
each of these different
서버이기
points,
때문에
I will
아무래도
touch upon why we are calling this the first
글로벌로
graphical
하더라도
update.
일단 자체
まあ一応
메인은
先に
일본이잖아.
言っ
그러다
とくコ
보니까
メントが結構多いんで、
양쪽을 다
7.0
만족시키기
で
그런 것 같은데.
PS4 が遊べなくなるってことはないです。それはないのでお約束しておきます。
I do want to clarify though,
그래픽
because I am seeing a
업그레이드해도
lot of
플스
comments
4로
wondering
게임
about
못하는
this.
건 아니라고 하네요.
This does not necessarily mean that we are ceasing the support for PS4 as of 7.0. So I do want to clear that out first.
그렇구만.
そしてですね、今日3つ目、せっかくなのでパッチ 6.x シリーズでどんなことをやっていくかというのもお知らせします。
그 다음에 패치
And then the third point,
시리즈의
since we are
로드맵.
here, I would like to take the opportunity to
6.x에서는
cover
뭘 할 건가?
what we are planning to do throughout the 6.x series as a sort of roadmap.
개인적으로 이번에는
네,
에어레카 마냥 막 뭐가 나올지 참 궁금하면서 무서워. 에어레카만 안 나왔으면 좋겠어,
Diving into the
솔직히.
details.
まずコンセプトの一つ目ですね。一人でもみんなでも遊べる RPG へ、さらなる進化をしていきますと。
아,
Our first
아소베르구나.
concept, an even better
혼자서도
RPG, alone or with friends.
다 같이도 즐길 수
こ
있는
れ、
RPG로 지금.
何かというとですね、読んで字のごとくなんですけど、そのファイナルファンタジー14、一応ジャンルとしては MMORPG って呼ばれてます。
So, I mean, it is what it says, of course, but yes, I understand that Final Fantasy XIV as a game genre would be categorized as an MMORPG.
영직
そ
혼자
こでですね、
돌기.
僕この11年ファイナルファンタジー14をやってきて、世界中のこうプレイヤーの皆さんと
아니요,
イベントだった
컨텐츠가
り、
근데 몰라요. 지금 일단
ハ
들어봐야
ーゲス
돼.
も含めてですけど、本当たくさんのゲーマーの人たちとこう話をしてきました。
And of course, throughout the 11
이렇게
years
만들
of doing
거다기
Final Fantasy
때문에.
XIV, we did various events, gaming events, including Fan Festival, and I had the opportunity to speak with the different gamers.
そこでですね、あとその
こだ
マーケティングチームに市場調査とかをしてもらって、これね定期的に拡張のたびにやってるんですけど、やっぱりこうそこで出てくる答えっていうのが、なかなかブレイクスルーできないなっていうのがあっ
또
たり
먹을
し
거
ま
좀
す。
시켜야지.
And of course, I would have my marketing teams perform market research as well. And this is something we regularly do when we start to plan for upcoming expansion packs. And with the information that we receive, and there's always like a question that we never seem to find a way to break through.
2つあって、1つはファイナルファンタジーシリーズ大好きなんだよ、すごいファンなんだ、全部やってるよ、ただし11と14以外ねっていうのがめちゃくちゃ悔しい。
아,
So there's actually two.
자기가 들은 말 중에 그러겠대.
One of
파판 시리즈
them
겁나 좋아하는데
is
12랑
we see
14
there's a
빼고
lot of players that love Final Fantasy,
빡칠만 하네.
and many that claim they've played all of the Final Fantasies except for 11 and 14, which is very frustrating.
11もね今かなりアップデートをかけてかなり大部分ねソロで遊べるように快適にしてますが、14はさらにその先へ行きたいと思ってます。
And of course, we are paying attention to Final Fantasy XI players as well, and we've made various updates. I think it has become very solo friendly recently, but with Final Fantasy XIV, we want to go beyond that.
あとはこうもう一つはですね、オンラインなんだよね。めんどくさい。人と遊ぶの嫌。なんかこう人間関係作るの嫌っていうのがですね、やっぱりナンバーワンなんですよね。
나는 혼자 하고 싶어. 온라인으로 들어가기 귀찮아. 이런 게 말이 많았다네.
The second
일본에
point
진짜 저런 거 많은 것 같아.
we are trying to
물론
make a
이제 우리나라도
breakthrough
있고
is
해외도 그렇긴
people
하겠지만
comment about, oh, online play, that's I don't want to deal with having to
일반
play with
난이도
other
콘텐츠
people.
트러스트
I don't
도입을
want to
하는 거
develop
글쎄요.
relationships
이번에
online.
득회 10이
And
오프라인
that's
모드로 나왔거든요.
Actually, a very
그래서
large
그런 거
reason, if not
만들지도
the
몰라.
number one
팝판 14도
reason
오프라인
many
모드로 해가지고
players
혼자 하는
kind
거.
of hesitate playing 14.
だから10年かけて MMORPG っていうジャンルじゃなくて、一人でもみんなでも遊べる RPG っていうジャンルにしたいと、14を。
So what I want to do here is spend the next 10 years and break out of that MMORPG category. I want this to be an RPG that can be enjoyed alone or with friends.
まずなので、7.0 でまでの間、フェイスシステムの大規模アップデートっていうのをやっていきます。
페이스 시스템 대규모
So,
업데이트.
as a lead up to
이거
7.0
뭐죠?
or until that time, we will
NPC들이랑
continue to
같이
make
던전 가는
updates
거?
to the trust system.
パッチ 6.1 から 6.5 までの5つのメジャーパッチで全メインクエストの必須 ID と4人用の透滅戦を全てフェイス対応します。
아.
So as it says here, trust compatibility for all main
6.1부터
scenario dungeons and
모든
4-player
시나리오
trials
던전과
to be added
그다음 4인
in patch
토벌전
6.1 through
추가한다고 하네요.
6.5.
그러네 방금 올테아님 얘기한 거
な
그거네요.
のでね、パッチ例えば 6.2 とかを見ると中途半端なところまでしか対応されてないとかいうことがある可能性は高いんですけど、それにね怯えているといつまで経ってもできないので全部一
약간
気には不
그런
可
것도
能
있어.
なので、
옛날
もうなのでこの
뭐지?
6.1 か
옛날
ら
토벌전
6.5
같은
つ
거
まり
가고 싶은데
7.0
사람
まで
안
の間
모을
を
때 있잖아요.
次に飛び上がるためにも
그런데
うどんどん
그럴
順次
때
やっていくと
좀
いう期間に当てさせてく
내가
ださ
뭐
い。
새라든가 개라든가 뭐
And so, of
그런 거
course,
먹고
these are
싶은데
going to
돌
be
사람이 없으면 못
incremental
그런 거는 괜찮은 거.
implementation. And so you might look at, say, patch 2 point something and 6.2, and you might notice that maybe not all of the dungeons have been supported with the trust system compatibility. But if we are afraid to make
근데 여기 보면
progress and be just in the
6.1부터
middle of
패치
working a
6.5
certain major patch
때까지
update,
모든 메인
we won't be
퀘스트랑
able
4인 토벌전
to make
만들겠다니까
progress. I think
꼭
it's impossible to do everything at once.
뭐야,
So we are trying
엔드워커만
to
만들겠다는
address
아니지
this
않나요?
as we can, and we're looking at this
전이잖아.
as a
모든 메인
preparation
퀘스트가
for
사이니까.
7.0.
저 기간
And so
안에
we
그렇게
would like to
그렇게
ask
이해하는 거
for
아닌가?
your understanding as we lay these foundations.
その第1弾となるパッチ 6.1 では新
네
生
바로
オ
나오네요.
ルゼア編のうち2.0
네. 바로
範囲
나오네요.
を全て
패텀
対応します。
6.1 때까지는 모든 신생
So the
에오르지아
first
컨텐츠
implementation,
대응하겠다.
patch 6.1 will make a Realm Reborn, and this is just patch 2.0 range, and the scenarios duty
이게 근데 확실히
become trust compatible.
인식이 정말 강하긴 한 거.
そしてですね、
난 이런 거를 혼자서
それ
갈
に伴
생각,
って一部
혼자서
初期のです
가야
ね、
될
メインクエ
이유가
スト
있을까
ID と
이랬는데
か、透滅戦もリニューアルしま
어렸을
す。
때는 한 10년 전쯤에는 그랬는데
And then further
10년
improvements
후에
will be
되고
made to
나니까
some
확실히
low-level main scenario dungeons and
이걸 같이 가고
trials.
싶은 사람도 없으니까
でちょっと
항상.
注意なんですけど、蒼天のイシュガルドに入ってからの8人透滅戦ストーリー上に出てくるあれらはちょっとやっぱりコストを全見積もりしたんですけど、どうしてもこう 6.1 から 6.5 までの期間では対応しきれないので、8人の透滅戦に関しては 7.0 以降順次対応していくつもりです。
8인 소벌전은 6점 때까지는
You may
못할
see
것
the
같다고
disclaimers on the
7점
bottom,
이후
but
때부터 한다네요.
for the
8인 토벌전은.
8-player trials, especially
근데
those
4인
with
트라이얼이 뭐야? 뭐가 있나?
the Heaven's Word expansion. I'm afraid we are unable to update it at this time.
사인용으로 가는
We
토벌점이
tried
있어?
to calculate all the cost and the
완전 옛날
resources
그거
that it
얘기하는
would take
건가?
for us to address all of this within that sort of 6.1 through
그 뭐야
6.5
완전
timing. But
노멀
I'm afraid
이지
we
이프리트 막 이런 거.
would be unable to allocate the resources for it. So we will get to it after 7.0. Yeah, these updates will be considered for 7.0 or later.
まあもちろん皆さんご存知の通り、その通常のねマッチングがなくなるわけじゃないので、あくまでスト
물론
ー
이제
リーを
매칭이
一人で
없어지는 건
進めて
아니기
いきたい
때문에
って
혼자
いう
하고
人
싶은
のための
사람만
機
하면
能
되는
なの
거래요.
で、レベリングルーレットだったりねマッチングっていうところはそのまま継続していくので、そこはご承知おきください。
And of course, we don't intend to do away with the regular
오는
matching
토벌.
systems.
아, 맞네.
Your leveling dungeons and queue matching in duty
그게
finders
있네.
will still be active and available. These trust compatibility is primarily for those who have a strong desire to play through these story dungeons on their own.
그렇구만.
で、そうですね、8人透滅戦は今回行月のフィナーレでハイデリン透滅戦でテストケースとしても含めてやったんですけど、やれることはなんだろう確証を得られたんですけど、まあ、相当やっぱりコストがかかるっていうのと、ギミックから調整していかないといけないっていうこともあって、まずは数の多い ID から優先させていただいてます。あとはね8人なんで責任半のかかり方がちょっと減るんでやっぱり、はいはいはい、まあ、ここは逆にマッチングの面白さみたいなところも味わってもらいたいので、一旦何千ゼロ以降にさせてください。
스토리 못 깬다 이런 건 없네. 그래도 하다못해.
And of course, with these 8 people trials or 8-person battles, we did try it out with the Mother Crystal trial, and we were able to see success as like a test case, but it did require a lot of resources for us to build it. And then if we were to start
재밌네.
applying that system to existing dungeons, we'd have to adjust the mechanics so that it would accommodate for the trust system. So at this time, we made the decision to move forward with just the instanced dungeons. And with an 8-person
개인적으로는
trial,
팝판14
I think
스피노프 게임
that
같은
sort
거
of reduces the
내줬으면 좋겠어. 이렇게
responsibility
MMORPG
per
말고 액션
person
같은
going
걸로.
into the match, hopefully. So
그런 것도
we're
재밌을 것
hoping that
같은데.
players would still jump
저번에
into
그
like a duty
단장난으로
finder
만든
and
것도
hopefully
옛날에 만든
get
것도 있잖아요.
the
막
enjoyment
대전 게임
out
마냥
of
한
matching up
거고.
with random people.
그거랑
So at this
뭐였지?
time,
옛날
we are
8비트
unable
버전
to
뭐
address
만든
it
거
within the
그거잖아.
6.1 through 6.5
그런 것들도
period, but
보고
we are
싶고.
looking to it for 7.0 or later.
でちょっと注意なんですけど、
はい、
まあどうしてもフェイスっていう呼び方をすると、暁といけんのかなとか名のある NPC といけんのかなってイメージがちょっと強いと思うんですけど、ストーリー上こうそのマッチングでしかいけないからこそ、じゃあ俺は他のことをやってくるみたいなのでこうみんなちょっといなくなったりとかしてたと思うんですよ。あれまで全部変えるはさすがに無理なので特に序盤とかは冒険者ギルドのメンバーだったりとか、暁の光のなんだろうこう光の加護を持っているであろう他のメンバーみたいなイメージで組むケースが多いです。
And I want to make another
그러게요.
point
작정하고 대전 게임
of
만들면 할 수도
caution
있어요.
here.
캐릭 진짜
Whenever
많아서.
we say trust compatibility, I think the thought that, oh, can we go into this dungeon with members of the Scions or any sort of named NPCs? And some of these story dungeons have key players kind of leaving the scene, like where the Warrior of Light goes into a dungeon and say somebody goes up and say, oh, I'm going to take care of matters over there. We can't have them come back just to join you in the dungeon. So in those cases, especially the earlier dungeons, you will see your trust members as like members from the Adventurers Guild or maybe other people who have the Echo accompany you in these dungeons.
ただまあキーになるストーリー上のキーになるポイントで、まあこいつはやっぱり本当はダンジョン一緒に行ってほしかったなってプレイヤーの皆さんが思ってるようなポイントは シナリオ一部カットシーンも含めてちょっと変更してでもできるだけそれにまあ添えるようにやっぱりニーズヘックと対峙するときはエスニアンも言って欲しかったなみたいなやつはできる限りそういうシチュエーションはなんとか対応していこうと思ってるので、一部ねそれもちょっと変更する部分があるかなとは思います。全部は無理なんで、はい、そこはご了承ください。
뭐라고? 일부
But that being
시나리오
said, there
살짝
are
고칠 가능성이
certain
있다고?
key points in the story where we do understand players might have a very strong desire to have particular NPCs accompany you in a dungeon. So in some extreme cases, and not extreme cases, but like some key points, the team will make some adjustments. We may have to change a part of the script so that it'll make sense for the character to join you. An example I can come up with off the top of my head is probably the Nidhogg battle. I'm sure a lot of people would have thought like, oh, it would have been nice to have Estinian join as part of the trust NPC. So we're considering having that available. So there may be some content that accommodates for certain NPCs to join you. I'm afraid we can't address all of them. We can't make it happen with all of the dungeons. So your
이번에 그
understanding
뭐야
of that would be appreciated.
에메트 셀카하고 던전 도는 거 되게 좋아하더만 사람들.
そしてですね、ごめんねちょっと長くて、6.1 特集パート1の時にまた詳しくお話ししようと思いますが、新生オルゼアの後半って結構今のレギュレーションと違ってしまってるこうダンジョンとかが多いので、かなり手が入ってますいろいろ。
And of course, with the
용의동지에서
details of
함께 입장하면
6.1,
걔는
we will have a
마지막에 못 싸우지 않아요?
dedicated live letter for
배려지
that,
그거야,
and I
그거야.
will
구슬
delve
들고
into
있어야
details
되잖아.
at that time. But I do want to mention that much of the content, especially in the later half of ARR, differ in how the regulation is set up. So there are changes that have been made.
まあ例えばトトラクとかの、ドゥーンってなってヘビースローがかかるヘビーがかかる床とかなくなってます。
한 명 임포스터였던 거예요.
For example, like when you go into the Thousand Miles of Totorak, and you step on those like poison floors, and all of a sudden you are hit with heavy or slow, we're actually getting rid of that.
あとはちょっと Q14 から申請するのに急いで作ってちょっとライティング良くないなとかいうところのダンジョンもちょっと絵的な調整もそれなりにやってます。
토트라크 과목에서
And there are also some aesthetical changes that we wanted to make. There were certain areas of the earlier part of FF14 when we were trying to quickly just relaunch as a Realm Reborn. So there were areas where lighting may not have been 100% to what we would have been satisfied with. So we went back in and adjusted those as well.
そしてですね、まあ他にもですね、8人パーティーバトルの一番最初であるリッドアッティン教習戦なんですけど、なくなります。
And then one of the first 8-person party battles that you encounter, I believe, is Camp Westwind. And I want to mention that we are doing away with that.
皆さん大ショックを受けておられますね。People are getting shocked.
帝国の盾としてね、武人として、身を挺してやってきた、ね、帝国将軍の一人、まあ将軍ではないけど正しくは8人でフルボッコはいかがなものかということでですね、はい、ちゃんとコストをかけてですね、クエストインスタンスバトルとして、生まれ変わりますので。
뭔가 무슨 장군이라는 애랑 싸우는 거 8명이서 막 접해는 건 좀 아닌 것 같다고 밸런스 조정해서 그 뭐야 바꾼다네요.
He's technically not a captain, but like I mean he's
퀘스트
like
싸움하는 거
a very
있잖아.
prominent figure. I think
이벤트 싸움.
It would be very humiliating for 8 people to come in and just beat him up.
누군지
So
모르겠어.
we actually allocated the resources to rebuild that battle so that it's going to be a quest instanced battle that you go in.
まあ他にも内閣外閣と呼ばれている8人ダンジョン、あれらもですね、今回すべて4人用 ID に作り直してあります。
And then of course, the Praetorium and the
내각
Castrum
외곽으로
Meridian.
불리는 것도 사인으로
Sorry, I can't pronounce it. Meridianum. Meridianum. Those very long Guardian bases that you need to go. They were originally 8-person content, but we are going to be changing it so
그건가?
that
메인
these are
퀘 시나리오 그거
4-person
바꾼다는 건가?
instanced dungeons.
あ맞구나.
なのでアルテマウェポン戦も切り出して、4人用としてシナリオモードを作って、であとラハブレアが憑依したサンクレットさんを8人でただひたすら無言で殴るっていうのもストーリー用のクエストインスタンスバトルとして作り直してるので
大好物です。
그 뭐야
And so your battle
세네는
with
쌍크레드도
Ultima or
퀘스트용으로
the
바꾼다네요.
Ultima weapon
8명이서 두들겨 패는 거
will
너무
be
불쌍하다고.
changed to a 4-person battle. We are adjusting the scenario mode for that. And then where you go in and silently beat up La Habrea, aka Thancred being possessed by La Habrea, is also going to be adjusted so that it's like an instance during a story quest.
というわけで、まあそんな風にコストもですね、レギュレーション、今のプレイフィールドにできるだけ近づけられるように、いろんな改修をしつつですね、パッチ 6.1 から 6.5 にかけて、4.x までの ID ですね、全部対応していこうと思いますので、よろしくお願いします。
So, yeah, in a nutshell, we are going in and making many adjustments so that it fits with kind of follows suit better with how the game feels at this time. So throughout patch 6.1 through 6.5, we will be looking at the various content up to the 4.x series, the different instance dungeon to make adjustments.
さあ、ではこのセクション以上で次へ行きたいと思います。
자 이제 다음
So moving on to the next section.
2つ目の新しい挑戦ですね。この、6.1 から 6.5 までの期間、まあ、7.0 リリースまでの期間を使ってですね、まず、まあ、長期運営やっていく上で第一次のグラフィックスアップデートを、裏でね作業させていただきます。
So our second concept, and again, this is going to be the preparation that we will be doing throughout patch 6.1 through 6.5, leading up to the launch of 7.0. It is a long-term, or like preparations for long-term operation of the game, and we want to be doing this in the background, but we'll be preparing for our first graphics update.
저는 딴 게임도 하다 보니까 14가 막 그래픽이 엄청 좋아 보이진 않아요. 그렇다고 뭐 나쁜 건 아닌데 뭐 좋다까지는 아닌 것 같아요.
なぜかというともうここまで11年運営してきてるともう尋常じゃないリソース、グラフィックスアセットが存在してます。
물론 이제 2022년도에 나오는 막 뭐라고 해야 되나 2020 요즘 세기에 나오는 막 이스라든가 킹오브라든가 이런 거랑 비교하면 좀 그렇긴 한데
been in operation for about 11 years, and considering all the graphical assets we have produced, it's an insane amount.
やっぱり一気に極限まで上げようとすると絶対コンバートミスがあったりとか、そもそもコンバートの物理時間が足りなくてもうデザインチームが無理です絶対できませんっていう答えになってしまうので、まあやれることを一回やって引き上げたらまたその状態で安定が見えたら次のをやってっていう形で、まあその第1回目が来るんだというふうに思ってください。
그래픽 업그레이드하는데 천천히 한대요. 너무 한 번에 확 해버리면 못 버틴다 해가지고
asset or resource that we've put into the game all at the same time, we might run into issues of conversion errors, or it just physically takes a lot of time to convert everything. And consulting with the graphics team, they already know that we can't address everything all at the same time. And so what we're trying to do is address these in phases so that we can test out certain elements, see how they work, and if it seems to be stable, we move into the next phase. And so I think with our first graphical update, this will be like the first time we start testing some of these elements.
4K グレープスでめっちゃ吹いたんだけど
I saw a comment that says 4K grapes. Thank you so much for that. That was hilarious.
あそこに 4K とかねなんか40万ポリゴンとかかけてるとそれこそ940みたいにキャラクター全然表示できねえぞってことになっちゃうのでまあちょっとこれから詳しく説明はしますよ。
That's hilarious, but like imagine spending so much resources just to get the grapes to be 4K resolution, and imagine spending 400,000 polygons just to depict a piece of fruit. We won't have enough resources to render our characters on screen. But let me go into the details.
そのグラフィックスアップデートは一気に、7.0 での投入を予定してます。
So again, these graphical updates are intended to be implemented in 7.0.
まあその次期拡張パッケージまでの間っていうのを、まあ僕らのそのグラフィックスのアップデートのシェーダー追加したりとか、いろんなものを追加していくテスト期間だったり、プログラム期間だったり、それに合わせたグラフィックスアセットのコンバート期間というふうにさせてください。
So until 7.0, this will be, again, our preparation period. So this is where our team will be testing out various additions to the graphical elements, including different shaders. We'll probably need to write more programs. This is where when we're going to be doing our asset conversions, etc.
で、ここが重要なんですけど、あくまでやっぱりマルチプレイのゲームであるっていうのをぜひ覚えておいてほしくて、やっぱり画面全体の美しさ、9番から申請した時に感じていただいたように、やっぱり総合的な美しさ、世界の美しさっていうのを追求していきますよと、コンセプトとしてはね。
And of course, one key point that we want players to understand is that this is still a multiplayer game, and so we want to strive for the aesthetic quality of the overall picture and looking at the sort of beauty or the element aesthetically pleasing sort of overall picture.
だってこうまさにね発売されたホライゾンのさクオリティでさ動くと思われたら困るわけだよ。あれで俺たち300人とか描画しなきゃいけないんで、いやできはするんだけど、みんなの PC 動かないよ。
確か
に。And I see games like Horizon Forbidden West, and I don't want to get people to think that we'll raise our graphic quality to that. It's amazing, yes, but imagine having to render 300 different characters on screen at the same time at that quality. And it's not physically impossible, but then I don't think it's going to run on anybody's PC.
そこは覚えといてね、みんなね。
So please keep that in mind.
ここをね、なんか勘違いされるのが一番怖い。
That's the scariest thing for people to kind of misconstrue.
で、当然なんですけど、アニメーションとか、まあその世界全体、画面全体の美しさっていうところにやっぱりアニメーションとかライティングシステムっていうのも大きく寄与していると思うので、このあたりもアップデートしていきます。
애니메이션이나 라이팅 시스템도 업데이트.
And of course, considering the sort of overall aesthetic, animation is going to be a key element. We're looking at lighting is another element that we want to adjust as well.
광원?
まあ例えばアニメーションに使っているよくねメモリがって言われますけど、メモリの割り当てをちょっと増やすことによって今までより長尺のこうエモートモーションが作れるとか、あとまあそのライティングがライトの数が増えることで実は潰れていたバックグラウンドのディティールがより見えてきて、リソースに手を加えなくても綺麗に見えるみたいなところもあるんで。
So what we mean by different updates to animation and lighting systems is, for example, I know people would automatically start talking about, oh yeah, memory issues with animation. So if we revisit some of the allocation of the memory for animation, it might allow us to create emotes with a longer animation loop, or with lighting, they're just having more lights than we had originally set up would allow for details that would have been sort of washed out or like not visible because of insufficient lighting to kind of show up, and so that will allow for an improvement in the graphical quality without us even having to adjust the elements that are already in the game.
まあ重要なところです。
はい。
スタンドアローンのゲームクオリティにはなりません。これをですね、皆さん頭にすり込むためにもですね、寝る前に必ず一度復唱していただきたいぐらい。
And again, very important point, I want to stress again, the new graphics will not be comparable to those of standalone titles. This is, again, very important. I want you to remember it. I want you to repeat it before you go to bed. That's how much I want people to remember.
まあ、とはいえ、やっぱりグラフィックスいろいろ手を入れて、パフォーマンスというかね、処理はより動作が重くなりはするので 7.0 では最低動作保証スペックの条件が、変わるのは確定です、はい、ただできるだけ多くのスペックにね対応できるっていうところはこれまでのポリシーでもあるので、捨てずにやっていきたいと思ってます、
So that being said, we do want to update the graphics for sure, and so that means your processor might require more power in order to render these graphics properly or like efficiently. So we will probably have to update the system requirements for your machines and your PCs. We will try our best to accommodate for as many models of machines to accommodate with the changes, but we do want to make you aware that it is pretty much guaranteed that we will have to update the system requirements.
でやっぱり気になるプレイステーション4なんですけど、この 6.x 期間中に、先行投入すると思いますけど PS4 版の最適化をやっていきます。
근데 저런 거 할 때만 생각하는
And
게
I know people are wondering about
진짜
PlayStation
어떡해?
4
이거
support
PS4
as of
최적화한다는데
7.0. I think what's
PS4가
going to
무슨 몇년 전
happen,
거야,
and this
그게.
will probably be done prior to the
10년
launch of
전이잖아.
7.0,
정확히
so
언제
sometime
나왔지?
within the 6.x series. We do want to optimize the PS4 version for sure.
이게 문제는
で
PS4가
さらにですね
노멀도 있고 슬림도 있고
PC 版にあるよう
프로도
に
있잖아요.
グラフィックスオプションのカスタムっていうの PS4 版少ないんですけど、あれを増やしてですね新しいその描画とか入れるとやっぱ重くなる部分があるので重くても綺麗でいいやっていう人はオンにしてもらえばいいんだけど、オフにしてそのフレームレートを優先するみたいなことができるようにしていくので PS4 のサポートっていうのも少なくとも 7.0 のタイミングではしっかりやりますので
거의 9년 됐네.
So, and on top of that, there are various graphical configurations that you can set up on the PC
옛날에
version.
잠깐 플스3
Like you can
지원할
customize some
때
of the like display options.
합판 14를 틀어본
We
적이
understand that
있었거든요.
it's a bit
진짜
lacking in the
농담 아니고 화질이
PS4
거의
version.
한
So we do want to implement
240p
options
그
in the
정도여가지고
configuration so that you can select
메뉴가 안
like
보였었어.
prioritize frame rate,
다
or if you
깨져가지고.
want to, if
근데 그게
you're
좀 있으면
okay
플스
with
4한테도 나온다고
performance kind of dropping slightly but still have the graphics performance, then you can select that option, whatnot. So I do want to assure you that we will continue
PS3
supporting for
플스3판으로 너무 해보고
PS4
싶어서
at least
해봤거든요.
until
진짜 못 보겠더라.
7.0.
눈갱이야.
오.
뭐야?
みんなどう思うんだろう
이렇게 나온다고?
What people's reactions are.
진짜로?
俺かと思ったって言ってる
Some people think, oh, is that me?
そうそうそう
깎아낼 수 있는 그래픽
なんかさ多分
폴리곤
ね
오지게 깎는 건가?
これじゃないよね多分みんな求めてるの
I don't think this is what
이거 약간 그거 같다. 스카이림에서 플스에 뭐야 파판 14
This is not what we're
그
would
캐릭터
desire.
갖고 가지고
なんか
만들어 놓은 거 같아
疲れた
이거. 그 스카이림 그 모드에서.
Some people are saying this looks like a very tired Yoshida.
そうなんか違うでしょ
Yeah, but it kind of does feel awkward.
야 얘가 이렇게 캐릭이 이렇게 나오면 어떡해.
まあここまでリアルにはならんす
아 이렇게는 안 된다고. 아 놀래라.
So we aren't going to be working to make it look this
화장실 갔다
real.
올게요. 잠깐 보고 계세요.
まあいわゆるフォトリアルを追求していくとグラフィックスアップデートってこっちに行きがちなんですけど、おそらくファイナルファンタジー14の世界やキャラクターが気に入ってくださってる方多分こっちを求めてはいないと思ってます。
And some games, of course, their intent is to lean towards that photorealistic depiction, and people tend to lean in this direction. But I think for those who enjoy the aesthetic of Final Fantasy XIV, this is not necessarily what we want to begin with.
では、今そのグラフィックスアップデートって実はテスト開発もスタートさせてるんですけど、テストスタートしてからまだ1ヶ月と1週間ぐらいなんですね。
So with these graphical updates, we are already starting testing actually, and it's been about a month and a week.
なのでその1ヶ月と1週間ぐらいテストをして、まあこれだったらもう今出してもまあいけるだろうここまではと。まあこれ以上を目指すんだけど、まあ少なくとも一旦お見せしてもここまでは間違いなく大丈夫だよあると 7.0 でっていうのを用意してきたんでちょっと見ていきましょうか。
And so we are still very early in our testing stages, again, about a month or so testing, but we do have results that we're seeing that is, of course, we're going to aim higher than what we're going to be showing you, but I think it's coming out pretty nicely, and we are relatively confident. So let us show you some of these images.
아니라 진짜 무슨 다크 소울 같다.
こちらがですねテスト期間1ヶ月目のサンプルです。キャラクターですねまず。
왼쪽이 현재,
so from first month of
오른쪽이
testing, so this is one of the samples.
これ左が今で右がテクスチャーをハイレゾリューション化してます。髪の毛も含めて。であとシェーダーを、1枚入れてます。
And so what you're seeing is the current image on the left, and then on the right, we've made the textures high resolution, and we've added a layer of shaders.
あと、セルフシャドウって言って自分の髪の毛の影が顔に落ちた時まあその自分のオブジェクトが自分に影を落とすのをセルフシャドウって言うんですけど、そこも調整してるので、結構ねセルフシャドウ実はすごい気になっててカットシーンとかでも。
And one thing that we did pay attention to was the self shadow, or whenever there's like an object that drops the shadow on yourself, especially if you look at the bangs and the shadow it casts underneath it. That was something that I wanted to address looking at the cutscenes in the past.
어차피 파파는 뭐 그래픽으로 하는 게임이 아니라서 그렇게 막 기대하진 않아.
もっと上目指せるとは思ってるんですけど、動作保証あまりにも重くならないっていう意味では、
파파하면서 아 그래픽 진짜 개쩔었으면 좋겠다 이런 사람 없잖아.
まあこの上さらにいろんなことをやった上で最適化していってまあやれるより高いところは目指していこうかなと思ってます。
So, of course, we do want to strive for even better, but at this time, I think from 1 month of testing and making sure that the game itself runs properly, I think this is what we can show at this time. And then we'll continue to test and we'll continue to sort of improve and then apply optimization.
まあ、いわゆるヒロシと呼ばれてる彼でやるとこんな感じです。
Of course, our Derplander.
보도 크리스탈 출시식.
でちょっとミコッテのサンプルです。
Here's a sample of the Mikote.
まあ戦月賞のボケ具合が、まあなくなったりですね。髪の毛の柔らかいそのカールの印象とかってちゃんと出てるのと、まあセルフシャドウがボケてないので綺麗にかかるようになります。
Of course, you may notice the face paint. The war paint is a lot crisper now. And then, as mentioned earlier, self shadow is nicer. I think it's brings out the softness of her face.
まあこれがだいたい1ヶ月目だっていうのをぜひ認識しておいてください。
Again, just to remind you, this is after testing for about a month.
No.
はい。まあこの方向性で良さそうよねやっぱりね。みんなのコメント見てると。
looking at everybody's comments, it seems like we are on the right track in terms of like the direction we want to take it to.
そうですね。Yeah, it looked like
でララフェルがね一番難しいんですよ。
라펠이 제일 어렵고.
And the Lalfell was actually quite challenging.
なんかリアルにするところがなくて
There are no areas really to make it quote unquote realistic, you know.
まあでも髪の毛綺麗になって、目の周りはものすごく鮮明になって、まあキャラメイクしておけばねもちろんいろんなパターン作れるとは思うんですけど。
But I think the hair has definitely gotten more defined, and then the
근데 생기는 아까부터 계속 생기고 있어요
eyes
보면은.
has become very crisp, and it looks a lot more alive, so to speak. And with being able to character create, I think it will allow for players for a broad range.
そうね、肌の感じをどこまでなんだろう本当にツルツルにするのかララフェルは、こう少しそうは言ってもちゃんと肌っていう感じを出すのかは、結構ね調整が難しいところだとは思ってるので、ただ皆さんが求めてるであろう方向性は理解してるつもりなので、しっかり種族ごとにですね調整しながらいきたいなと思ってます。
근데 개인적으로 저게 눈에 막 생기고 하면은 난
It's still
그게
a
더
challenge to
무서워.
figure out how do
이게
we
그런 게 있잖아요. 사람이 그
depict the surface of their skin. Like, do we
게임에 보면
make it
불편한
completely
골짜기라는 게
like
있거든요.
flawless,
한없이
spotless,
인간에 가까
or do we
진짜
actually
현실
give it
캐릭
some texture
사람에
to make it look
가까워질수록
like skin?
점점 사람이 이제 그 캐릭터 그
we want to
디자인이나
want to
그래픽에
believe
호감을
that we
갖다가
understand
인간과
what the players are
비슷해지게 그
looking
직전에
for, but
갑자기
it
호감도가
is
확 떨어졌다가 다시
something
인간과
that we
똑같아
still
그러니까
need to kind
엄청
of
비슷하게 되면
explore.
올라온대요.
まあなんて言ったってね11年も皆さんと一緒にこのゲーム作ってきてるんで、
괜히 진짜 어중간하게 극강으로 올렸다가 막
But again, we've been with you guys for about 11 years at this time, so we want to believe that we
괜찮아 이거는
understand what the players are
그래픽은
looking for.
낮추면
で
됩니다.
すいませんちょっとテスト1ヶ月目ということでですねキャラクターサンプルとしては以上になります。またなんだろう途中でねファンフェスのタイミングとかあればまた途中経過とか、ね、
골짜기
お知らせしてい
빠지지
けたらなと思
멈춰야지
ってます。
조절하긴 해.
So yeah, because we are still in the early stages of testing, as for character
개인적으로 제가 그
samples, that is
스카이림
all that we
모드로
have at
만드는
this
캐릭터들
time.
진짜 안
We're hoping
좋아하거든요.
that
너무
we can
이상해서.
continue to update everybody on the status. Perhaps maybe next time we can do it at like a fan festival or something like that.
じゃあ改めてですねそのキャラクターまずそのグラフィックス第一次グラフィックスアップデートでキャラクターに関する表現のアップデート項目をお知らせしておきます。
Okay, so just wanted to recap all of the different elements that we look to update for our first set of graphical updates in terms of characters.
まずですね全体的にテクスチャーを高解像度にしていきます。髪とか肌とかそれから今日ちょっとねご紹介できてないですけど装備品のテクスチャーの解像度も上げていきます。
So first one would be higher resolution textures, which includes hair, skin, and we weren't able to show any examples today, but we do want to improve the textures of the gear as well.
でさらにですねこれはシェーダーと呼ばれる、処理になってくるんですけど質感の表現というのを向上させていきます。例えば肌、それから装備品の金属部分あと布って、布用のシェーダーっていうのが実はあって、Q14 では入れてたんですけど重すぎて外してるんですね。そろそろいけるだろうということで布がもう少し滑らかに布っぽく見えるっていうシェーダーなどを今、研究トライしているところです。
And then the next item, and this is relating to various shaders, shader processing, which is improved material qualities, of course, skin, metal, and fabric. It's interesting because in the 1.0 or like the old version of Final Fantasy XIV, there was a shader or like a process that was just applied to fabric so that it would look the textures would the texture quality would look like fabric, but it was too heavy of a load on processing, so we had to remove it in the relaunch. But we're testing various ways to see if we can apply something like that to make Fabric a bit more, well, smoother and more Fabric-like. And we're still kind of researching and trying out various methods.
そしてですね、キャラクターに対してのライティングとシャドウの強化というのもやっていきます。特にね、見栄えに直結しやすいこうセルフシャドウに関してはすごくずっと気になってたんで。
And then again, lighting and shadow, better lighting and shadow effects, especially for the player's shadows.
まあさっきもお話しましたけど、できるだけプレイヤーの皆さんの今のキャラクターに持ってるイメージっていうのが変わらないように、綺麗になったな俺のキャラって思ってもらえるようにしていきたいと思ってます。
Of course, again, our goal is to make it so that the overall appearance of player characters will be altered as little as possible. We want you guys to see the graphical updates and think, oh wow, my character's become pretty.
で注意点が2つあって、はい、まず1つ装備品、信じられない数のアセットがあるのであれを 7.0 までに全部コンバートするのは不可能です。
So 2 points of caution. The gear, we mentioned about updating the material quality of gear, but you know, there's an incredible, unbelievable amount of gear available for all of our player characters. And considering we'd have to convert them all, we will not be able to get through converting all of the gear by the 7.0 timing.
なので 7.0 で新しく実装されている装備っていうのは全て今回のグラフィックスアップデートを経た内容で作っていきます。なのでクオリティがより高いもので全部用意するつもりです。
So any gear that is implemented from 7.0 will have gone through the process of the updated graphics. So of course those will be of the higher quality.
ただし、できる限りこうプレイヤーの皆さんがミラプリとかをしておしゃれによく使っているものに関してはちょっと優先的にできる限り対応をして、またパッチ 7.x シリーズで徐々にその古い装備っていうのも新しい仕様に少しずつこう対応していけるようにっていうふうに思ってますので、ちょっと数年がかりで全体が上がっていくことにはなるかと思いますが、よろしくお願いします。
But we understand that there are certain glamours that people use often, so we want to look at those and try to get those done with a higher priority in terms of like which to get to. And throughout the 7.x series is when we will address the rest of the previous equipment or gear. So I'm afraid it will take at least a few years to address all of the different textures.
지금 계속 텍스처 얘기하고 있나요?
아 또 NPCです.
오늘은 요시다가 편하게 보라고 했으니까 술 마시면서 바로 봐도 된다고 했으니까 나도 그렇게 봐야지.
NPC 全員も無理だと思っていて 7.0 までには。
The other thing are the NPCs. I know we talked about updating the player characters and the graphics on those, but
이 치킨집 되게 웃기다.
I'm afraid we're not going to be able to address all of the NPCs
2,000원 주고
by
콜라를 큰 걸로
7.0.
바꿨는데 펩시가 왔거든요. 기분이 굉장히 안 좋았는데
クオリティ
치킨을
の
여니까
高くなった
감자튀김을 서비스로 줬어요.
まだなんて
내 마음을
順番
들었다
が回ってこない NPC っていうのが出てしまうと思うんですけど、ちょっとそれも許していただけると助かります。
So I'm terribly sorry to say this, but you may start
저는
seeing
펩시보다 콕합니다.
NPCs that have gone through the graphical
펩시 너무
updates and
달아가지고.
those that have not gone through the updates. But please, your understanding would be appreciated.
これをね全部やれって言うと、いやもうじゃあグラフィックスアップデートやめましょう、無理です無理ですってなっちゃうんで、ちょっとちぐはぐっていうのが出ちゃうタイミングがあるとは思うんですけど、それをやっぱり承認していかないといつまで経ってもできないと思ってるので、ちょっと許していただけると。なのでちょっとイルベルドはまだ後でいいかみたいな。
And if I were to tell my team that, okay, we need to do everything, then people are just going to throw in the towel and be like, no, this is impossible. So I'm afraid there will be times at which not all of the NPCs will have gone through their graphical updates, and it might look a little disoriented or disjointed. But if I don't allow for that to happen, we won't be able to get to it. So again, if you could forgive us for going through that, that would be appreciated. Like, your bird might not get his graphical update as quickly as maybe like the Sultana, but
テレジアデレジはっていうお声が結構あるんです
이것도 되게
よ
오래 뒤에 그
ただですね
7.0이면
残
진짜
念な
멀었다.
なんとテレジアデレジってプレイヤーのなんだろうキャラメイクで作られてるんで僕らが手を下さずともあいつ勝手にクオリティ上がってしまう可能性が高い
some people are asking, oh, but what about Telegy, Adelegy? And I realize his expression is part of the parts that you can select when you're creating your character. So because we're updating the player character facial parts, Telegy, Adelegy is going to have his graphical updates already. So he may be an exception to those NPCs.
まあというわけでプレイヤーベースで組まれてるものはね必然的にそうなるんですけどまあマダモさんとかはねやった方がいいかなとは思ってるんですけどちょっとまだ精査まではしきれてないのでちょっとそういう状態が出るとは思うんですけどよろしくお願いします。
So yeah, any characters that are built based on facial parts or body parts that are available for players to utilize will probably be updated simultaneously with like the player character graphics. But there are certain key NPCs that we're also looking at. Maybe the Sultana, but we have yet to sort of assess, and we will continue to sort of explore the
제대로 된
options.
참격을 다시 날리려고.
でまあちょっと今日お見せしたのは繰り返しになりますがテストをスタートしてまだ1ヶ月ちょっとのデータなので、さらなるですねクオリティの向上に向けて他の種族も含めてですねテスト続行していきます。いずれ装備とかもねこんな感じになるよというのもお見せできればと思ってます。
But yeah, again, what we showed you was only about a month or so of testing. So we're hoping to provide you with more updates as they come in. Perhaps the other races, perhaps we can provide you an update with gear, etc. in the not so far future.
で、そうだな。あとは結構コメントであったんですけど、装備の干渉なんとかしてほしいって。あれは正直どうにもならないです。物理エンジンを入れて、計算でかわすしかないんですけど、それをやるとやっぱ動かなくなっちゃうと思うので、あとやっぱり装備の干渉を許可してる僕が、もういいとこれは割り切ってくれって言ってるから今のペースでそのアセットギアが報酬が装備がリリースできてるっていうところもあるので努力はしますが根本的にオフラインのゲームのようにはならないので、そこはすいませんご了承ください。
And I'm also seeing comments about can you do something about like gear or equipment or like player characters like body parts interfering with the graphics of gear, equipped gear. And I'm afraid that is something that we cannot address fully. We would have to put in a physics engine in there, and that would cause for some of the characters to kind of not move properly anymore. And plus, I, as the director, have allowed for those imperfections to my team. I'm afraid we're just moving on with it, or else we won't be able to keep the pace in releasing these different gear and the different designs that is available. So I'm afraid we are unable to address it fully to match something that of a standalone game. Sorry.
さあでは次はですねちょっと BG マップに関わるところもテスト1ヶ月ちょっとのサンプル持ってきました。
맵도
we have more samples though. This time it's for various backgrounds and like map elements.
まずこれは単純にテクスチャーとかに何も手を入れずに配置できるライトの数を増やすっていうテストのサンプルです。
So this first image is a test of just simply the number of lights we can place in a certain scene without it touching any of the textures or surfaces.
配置ライト数をですね複数増やすとこんな感じになります。
불빛 배치를
So
좀 더
we just
늘리면
added
이렇게
a few more lights in a particular scene, and what you see is in the right side of the image.
ライトがですね遠くに左側ね1灯しか焚けないので、ちょっと見てほしいのは手前側にあるデスクに影がほぼ落ちてないのが、右側複数ライトによってちゃんと影が出るようになってるでしょ。
So if you look at the one on the left, we were only able to place one light source
되게
in the
무슨
scene,
그거 같아.
but in the picture on the right, we were
거실불을
able
안
to
켰다가
place
거실불
multiple
켰을 때
lights
보이는 우리
to
집.
give it a more realistic look. And as you can see, the
부엌이랑
desk
내 방이랑
is
엄마
now
방은 불
casting
켜져
a
있는데
shadow.
거실 안 켜져
まあ
있다가
当然分かりやすく上の方にライト
거실불 딱 켜라 해가지고
さらに
켰을
1
때
灯追加されてるので、まああそこまで作り込んでたのにライトが当たらないことによって全部黒で潰れちゃってたのが、まあ、しっかり見えてくるようになるので、これね多分プレイ
보면
じっくり
여기는
見て
여기 불빛 겁나
見ない
세게
と
줬는데
とい
여기
うか
없잖아 지금.
受ける雰囲気が変わるのでこ
여기
れによっ
켜지고.
て。
And of course, I think one of the key changes that you can see is because we were able to place a light directly on top, you're able to see some of the details that would have been kind of hidden behind a shadow. And so I think with allowing for more lights to be placed, it will kind of give you a better impression of some of the atmosphere in some of these locations.
でさらにですねこちら今の現在の状態のティターニアですね。
Next, you see Titania in their current state.
でこれはシャドウです。シャドウのテストをお見せします。
So this is where we tested out how shadows appear.
그러면 그림자 테스트.
影に使ってるテクスチャーの解像度と計算を上げていくので、これぐらいくっきり見えていくようになると思います。
So this is where we tested the texture as well as the
위에 빛은 따로
calculation
두고
formula
밑에
behind
거
how we're
그림자만 좀 더 이제
displaying the shadow
선명해졌다 그거 얘기하는
underneath
거군요.
Titania. And we believe that we are able to improve the quality and the resolution up to what you see on the right image.
さらにですねこれ複数ライトも置いてみてるので、もう今の14だと左の環境しか作れないんですけど、複数ライトさらにカラー変えたりしていくことで右のようにねかなり複雑なライティングの絵作りっていうのができていくようになります。
And as you can see, we have multiple lights again in this updated picture, and then plus we put some colored lighting. So the background is exactly the same, and it was actually quite intricately built, but by having these different sort of lighting available to shine on it, you can see the complex details that was part of the structure.
ちなみにこれ左のティタニアのストーリー的には左の雰囲気がいいなって言ってるコメントがあるんですけど、はい、実はこの状態をさらにグレードアップさせたバージョンを BG チーム作ってきたんです、サンプルとして。ただ開発者目線で見ないと分かんないからライトの色を赤とかにして複数ライトが混ざってるっていう環境を作ってくれって言って僕がわざわざデザイナーがセンスよく統一してきたものをばらしたんでデザイナーのセンスじゃないので
걔네들이 아니면 알아차릴 수가 없던데
デザイナーの名誉のために言っときます。はい。
One thing I do want to clarify, because somebody pointed out they liked the look of the original Titania, where it has that sort of mood with all the muted colors. Yoshida I want to point out that this is the developers actually brought to me an example of what improved graphics would look like with that stayed within the color palette of the original picture, but that's very much in the developer's perspective, and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference of what has improved. That's why I had requested my designer to intentionally place red lights, something that's more obvious, just to show an example. So don't worry, this is not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to destroy the atmosphere. The designer was very mindful about keeping the tone of the story, but I wanted a more overt example. So just wanted to clarify that.
でここでちょっとね
저렇게 그래픽가
特に注目してほしいの
그림자
が
나와도 난 솔직히
画
모를
面
것 같아.
右の奥、上の方に見えてる
ダウンロードの方が
ステンドグラスのあたりをちょっと見ていただきたいんですけど
And one part that I do want to point out, if you look at the upper part of the image, where the stained glass is,
これ左と右マップのポリゴンは何も変わらないんですね。テクスチャー解像度も変わってないです。
So just reiterating that we have not changed any of the polygons that are in the map layout. We did not improve any of the textures here.
なのでライトを変える複数置けるようになるだけで実は BG アーティストたちがこだわって作っていた箇所っていうのがより明確にちゃんと見えるようになるんですよ。左は全部影で潰れてるんですけどもともとちゃんと凹凸あるんですね。
지금 보면은 이게 그 조명 효과만 준 거래요.
This is what I'm trying to show with this image is that by being able to place multiple lights in a scene, we are able to showcase the details that our background artists have put into the structure. So above these stained glass, you might see these sort of like tiered sort of molding on top, and
근데 나는 티타니아 저 뒤에 스테인드 글라스가 있다는 걸 처음 알았어.
Unnoticeable because it's kind of drowned in the shadows. So by being able to place multiple lights, we're able to accentuate those details that our background team has put into these
맞아, 그런 거 좀 있긴 했어요.
ちなみにバックグラウンドアーティストたちはライトの追加をやっていこうって言ったらめっちゃ喜んでました。
So when we were talking about adding multiple lights, the background team definitely had a very strong reaction to that.
よかった。
さあで次はですね、こちらは金属表現を、その質感を上げますというサンプルになります。
So next sample we want to show you is how we depict like the texture of the metal.
こちらもですねデザイナーの趣味というよりはですね悪趣味なぐらい変えてくれって言ってるのでそれをご承知おきください。
And of course, this again is supposed to be an example, and so I asked my designer to make it very gaudy at this point. So please understand, it is not necessarily the designer's choice.
まあもともとやりたかったけどシェーダーがなくてできなかったので、まあこれぐらいゴールドをちゃんとやっていきますよと。
So up until now, we didn't have the proper shaders to apply,
뭔가 화난 코끼리 된 것
but
같다.
we would love to improve
가만히
the
있는
look
코끼리.
of metallic surfaces. For example, gold here.
すごいですよね。
コメントで吉田の家じゃんって書いてあるんだけど、俺んちこんなんだったらもう仕事してないわ。
People are saying, "Oh, is this Yoshida's house?" I was like, "No, if I were that rich, I wouldn't be working."
でもこれ怖いもんで今まで我々は左を金だと信じてまいりましたけども、なんかもうブラスにしか見えないですよね。Yeah, actually we trusted left side screen is gold up until now, but now it only see brass, not gold, no more.
이거 채팅창에 이거 요시다 집
こういう
아니니까
形で金
저런
属
게 내
の
집이었는데 여기서 일하고
強化
있겠네.
っていうのもやっていきます。まあこれはねとても分かりやすい例じゃないかなと思います。
Thank you for that. But yeah, again, we're trying to make improvements to the material quality, so the look of metallic surfaces as well.
さらにですね続いてはマップに使えるメモリっていうのも、上限を上げてあげようと思っているので、それによってですねより多くのオブジェクトが配置できるようになっていきます。
And next was to look at the memory resources allocated to rendering a particular area on a map. And I'm looking to raise that sort of cap so that we can place more objects in a particular field.
まあこれ左側が現在よくちょっとマトシャと出会ったりするところですけど、こんな感じになってます。これ現在ですね。
So the left side, you may remember your first encounter with Matsuya.
でそれがですね今回このぐらいまではいけるだろうと。
필드에 가고
And with testing, we are seeing that we could possibly place more objects like these.
左と比べてですね、やっぱりまず注目点としては、その1枚のループで作られてたその階段状になってる部分っていうのが、それぞれ素材違いを、しかもこう組み合わせで、ずらして配置したりすることによって、
개인적으로는 저기다 할 바에는 그냥 하오진 가구수를 늘려줘.
せていける。このあたりはね、実はすごく大きいと思います。
필드 말고 하오진 가구수 늘려줘.
And so in the left, you may notice that it's just a repeat layered on, like a repeat layered on top of each other. But in the updated graphics, you can see that we are able to place objects not exactly like on top of each other, but like you can shift it by a little bit. It'll allow for a more realistic depiction of the area has been in use. So this is actually quite, it helps with like the immersion.
で、あとはその床ですね、実は。床の上にもう一枚テクスチャーを重ねてブレンドさせることでですね、床がこうひび割れだったり、細かい、今だとねメモリがないので巨大な床を1枚貼ってどうにかところなんですけど、そこをさらにこうスカン上げていけるようになる。
And then the floor or the ground, with the graphical update, would be able to add another layer on top to give it more texture and kind of blend it in. So like cracks in the ground. Previously, we wouldn't have enough memory, so we would just have to paste one giant floor and deal with it. But with the graphical updates, I think we'll be able to improve on the texture quality as well.
そしてですね、続いてがちょっと BG でお知らせする最後になるんですが、
Next is, I believe, the last set of samples that I've seen for the background elements.
こちらです。我々開発チーム最大の敵、自動草って呼んでるやつ。これは。
わ。
So this is one of our pet peeves, arch nemesis, I should say. These are like these automatically generated grass.
これがですね、カットシーンのチェックをやってるとですね、割り込んでくるんですよ。自動で生やされるんで。多分カットシーン作ったスタッフの時には生えてなかったんでしょうけど、僕がチェックする時は生えててですね、このジャギジャギがすごい入ってくるんですよ、カメラに。
And this is so, it takes away from cutscenes when it barges in. I'm sure when the cutscene team is creating the composition, they don't see the grass because this is just automatically generated after the fact. But sometimes it's like so close up and it's so pixelated, and that pixelation it bothered me very much.
今回もね、実はちょっと裏話ですけど、
はい、
まあエルピスでヘルメスにね、メーティオンにせがまれてエルピスの花をこう見せるシーン、夜空でね、あるじゃない。でヘルメスがこう仮面を外す、あそこがですね、何度チェックしてても自動草が入ってくるんですよ。で頭にきたんでもう BG 班に頼んでこの辺もう草生やさない設定にしてくれって。
あ、なるほど、除草剤を撒いてしまったんですね。
So one behind the scenes comment I wanted to make when I was looking at the cutscene in Elpis, sorry spoilers, Hermes, when he's talking to Meteon about, oh, I want to show you the flowers in Elpis, and he removes his mask, and the grass automatically generates. And it gets in the way. So I got so mad. I told the background team, like, can you make it so that you don't have grass being generated in this part of the ground?
헤르메스가 메테오한테 꽂주는데 옆에는 풀들 막 잘 안 한다고.
今まだテスト中ですが、こんな感じになります。はい。
But that will be updated, hopefully.
그래픽을 업그레이드한 게 아니라 그냥 좋은 뿔들 앞에다 붙여놓은 것 같은데. 그냥 카메라 앞에다 그냥 다 가려버리고 뒤에 똑같아 보여.
草原から上は何も手入れてないんですよ。向こうに見える木とか全く今のままなんですけど、まあこんなに変わるですよね。
So, and plus we are able to generate a variation of different grass or plants. And so while we haven't added or modified anything in the background, like the trees and the field in the background have not been modified, the look of it is different because of how we can process these automated grass.
これはですね、自動草そのものを入れ替えるので、申請から行月まで全てのマップで自動で生えてる草がきれいになります。
And for this update, we will be replacing the system that generates these
왼쪽에 있는 풀은 되게 무슨 플스 1에 그런 거 같다.
And so this should be applied throughout all of the areas
플스 1에 있던 그
from
게임
around
그냥
the
리마스터
barn
했을 때
throughout
저런 느낌 나잖아.
Endwalker.
さあではバックグラウンド実はねまだあるんですけど、ちょっとどんな表現バックグラウンドを上げていくかというのをお知らせしておきます。
We've done various other testings in terms of background elements, but allow me to summarize again.
まず先ほど、サンプルでも見ていただきましたライト配置数の追加、質感凹凸表現ね雰囲気の強化っていうのがこれによって、行われます。
내가 딴 한자 모르는데 저 요철자는 정말 잘 본다.
We are going to be doing additional lighting points, so improve
옛날 내 세대라면
visual quality,
절대
depth,
모르는
and
일이 없네.
immersion.
そしてですね影の高解像度化影のテクスチャーを高解像度にすることでですねちらつかなくなったりですね影がよりメリハリが効くようになります。
And then higher resolution shadows. And so we'd be improving the texture of the shadow and how it's depicted so that it will allow for like flickering, decreased flickering.
ちょっと嘆きの海のマップを思い出していただきたいんですけど、あそこ実は雰囲気を宇宙空間にするために、ライトの距離をすごい遠くして、全体の暗さをこう締めるようなことをやってるんですけど、結果そうすると影がものすごく長く表示されるんだけど、テクスチャー解像度が低いがゆえにすごいじらついたりボケたりする箇所が結構多いんですよ。ただ雰囲気を優先したんで我慢してたんですけど、そういうところもですねより綺麗にちらつかずに影が出てくるようになると思います。
So if you would recall Mare Lamentorium and how we were trying to depict or make it seem like you're in outer space and make sure that the lighting had been placed in a very distant location so that we emphasize that sort of darkness that surrounds you. Because of that, whenever you're on the moon, your shadow gets to be very long, but because the shadow textures were not optimal, you would see frequent areas that would cause the shadows to flicker or it could get blurry. So with the graphical update, we're hoping to improve so that those shadows would come out a lot crisper.
そして質感表現の向上です。これもシェーダーでですね、金属とか布とか、まあそれ以外のちょっとシェーダーも今検討してます。
And then, of course, improve textures, which includes metals, fabrics, and we're also trying to consider what other elements can we improve.
そして最後にご覧いただいた自動配置植物の強化、高解像度にしたりですね、あと植生をね、種類を増やしたりしていきます。
Lastly, more and better auto-generated greenery, which is increased resolution, variety, and etc.
で画面全体にフィルター効果として非常に重要なアンビエントオクルージョンっていう機能だったりフォグいわゆる霧をこう重ねるみたいなそれをフォグって呼ぶんですけどこれらに関しては今テストをしてるんですけどまだちょっとサンプルをお見せできない状態です。
근데 그거는 진짜 그걸 봐야 돼요. 그래픽 좋은 거 한번 봤다가 봐야 그래요.
We're also considering other effects or filters that would apply to the overall
더 좋은 걸 안 보니까 이게 내 머릿속에는 아 이게 천의 질감이구나
and fog effects. Now those are still being tested, but we couldn't produce results that we can present at this time.
めちゃくちゃ雰囲気出るしめちゃくちゃクオリティ上がるんですけど画面全体にパフォーマンスの影響を与えるものなので慎重にテストをしてしっかりこれだったら大丈夫だろう その
사람이
皆
막
さんが
그냥
極端に
이스만
PC を
하고
買い替えたりと
모든
かし
모든
なくても
개적하고 막 이러고
あとオプションでね
고정
ちょっと
게임하고
切ることで
파판식
軽く
하고
できるとかっていうのを
이러면
ちゃんと用意した上で
알수
ここまで
없어요
やれますよっていうのをちゃんとお見せできるまだちょっと1ヶ月じゃそこまではいけないので、まあ、ただこれらも強化はしていきますのでまた続報をねお待ちいただければと思います。
And we totally understand that it will give it a different sense of atmosphere, or it would really improve the mood if we had those kinds of textures applied or those filters applied. But it does affect the overall performance of the game. So we will need to test it very carefully for sure. So we want to explore our options, but we also want to make sure that we are at a state where we're comfortable and not requiring for so much resources that players would have to update their PC to an extreme, or be able to provide an option to shut it off if you want to
후반부는 어차피
optimize
Q&A니까 저는
your
방송을 하지 않을
performance.
거예요.
So I'm afraid we're not
Q&A는 굳이
able
궁금하지 않아서
to show you anything as of like a month or so of testing, but we're
방송
hoping
별로 안 한 것
to
같은데 벌써
bring
1시간
updates
47분이에요.
further down the line. So yeah, if you could
그냥
please stay tuned
질문만 할
for
거라
that.
해가지고
さてでは、グラフィックス第1次グラフィックスアップデートの、まあ、今日お伝えできる範囲としては、ここまでとさせていただきます。
Okay, so in terms of the graphical updates and the preparations that we're making for it, I think is all that I have for today's presentation.
さあでは続いて、3つ目なんですが、まあ、引き続き多くのアップデートこれまでと変わらずですね適切なスケジュールでお届けしていきますよというお話です。
So yeah, we will continue to provide regular updates on an appropriate schedule.
せっかくの機会ということでですね、ちょっと 6.1 から 6.5 まで現状決まっているものでお知らせできそうなものをお知らせしておこうと思います。
So I would like to share information that we know that we're going to have from 6.1 through 6.5.
まずパッチ 6.1 なんですけど、こちらねリリースタイミングが読み切れないと思うんですけど皆さん4月には出します。はい。
So 6.1 series. I understand that it's still kind of hard to see when it's coming, but we are looking at April at this time.
저거 뭐야? 신성
当然ですがメインクエストのアップデートっていうのは 6.1 から 6.5 まで新しい冒険をお届けしていこうと思ってます。
저희 그건가?
Of course, part of those updates will include the updates to the main scenario. We will have a new story with each patch installment.
そしてですね全世界から帰ってこいと言われていた、事件や紳士ねついに帰還でございます。ヒルディブランドの行月編が、始まります。
Of course, we've heard many people ask for him to come back. This gentleman extraordinaire, Mr. Hildebrand, will be making his return.
新しいサブクエストシリーズとしてですねタタルの大繁盛商店というのが、連続として始まります。
거기 뭐야 어디
And then, of course, a new series of side quests named Tataru's Grand
그죠? 힐디
Endeavor.
못하지 치력 가서 어떻게?
ちなみにヒルディブランドが最後に目撃されたのはパッチ 5.3 で実装された漆黒決戦ノルブランドでエリディブスによって召喚された中に
いましたね。
確率でたまに出てくるんでねあいつID の中に、あそこですね最後に目撃されてるのは。
I believe the last last time Hildebrand was seen was in patch 5.3, the Hero's Gauntlet. And this is a random occurrence, so you may or may not have seen him. But when you are doing your Warrior of Light battle, he is one of the people that is summoned.
さあどんな冒険とかね珍道中になるのかぜひ楽しみにお待ちください。
But yeah, we hope you enjoy whatever odd adventures that he gets into.
まあどんどんいきます。パッチ 6.1 まだまだあってですね、アライアンスレイドミソロジー・オブ・エオルゼア12神にまつわる物語ですねスタートします。
Continuing with patch 6.1 updates, we will have our Alliance Raid Myths of the Realm Part 1 implemented. This is going to delve into or touch upon the mythos of the 12 gods.
そして新 PVP のクリスタルコンフリクトというのが、スタートして蛮族クエストアルカソーダラ続編があって、ゼツは本当お待たせしました、レイド大好き勢、本当お待たせしたんですが最新ゼツリリースします。
And so next is a new PvP, the Crystalline Conflict. We will have a new Beast Tribe quest, or like a new tribal quest. Arkasodara tribe quest in their dailies, and then a new ultimate content. Thank you so much for your patience. Our new ultimate duty will be implemented as of 6.1.
막 뭐야 유사 메테오 떨어지고 막 다 망했던
もうバランスチェックも終わっていて結構むずいですよ。
한 알테마 웨폰.
And of course, we will finally be reopening the Unreal battles. Ultima's Bane will be what's coming for the next battle. We are currently testing this out, but it's quite challenging.
アルテマウェポンってもともと結構初期に時間のない中で作られていて、IL が結構みんな上がってるんで、いろいろギミック無視できたりとか、被弾してもそんなになんですけど、レベル90でバランス取り直してきっちりアイテムレベル確定させたらね、やっぱ面白いし、やりごたえあるなこれって感じでした。
Of course, when we first designed the Ultimate Weapon fight, it was done in a rush, and then by now, I think people have raised their item level, so even if you take damage, it's not as bad. But with the Unreal battles, we have adjusted the boss fight so that it matches that of a level 90 player. So, and we've kind of finalized the item level. So testing it out, I enjoyed it. It was a very interesting battle, and it's very challenging for sure.
でも今ちょっとコメントであったんだけど
그 혹시 마지막에 웬 광전사 와가지고 구멍에 뭐야 무슨 기술 쓸 때 무슨 구멍 같은데 들어가서 쏘봤던데 막 그건가?
ちょっと考え直そうメモっといてもらっていいかしら。はい
빨리 돌아가야 되는데 율모에서
There was a comment about the Beast Tribe quest, and it seems to not be very favorable to call it that. I know we're trying to shift it to say tribe quests, or like we're just calling it by the tribal name in the English, but we are going to try to figure out a better way to phrase it.
そして絶なんですけど、
はい、
めっちゃ調整続いてるんですけど、多分一番難しいと思うんで、やる方は覚悟をしておいてください。
할 거면 각오하는
And I want to backtrack a little bit to the ultimate duty, the new ultimate duty, and we're balancing right now and making adjustments, but it's quite difficult. So if you're up for a challenge, that's fantastic. But yeah, it's going to take some. It's going to again be challenging.
実は 6.11 かな。
Oh, I'm sorry. Ultimate would be not 6.1 but 6.11, so it's probably not at the same time as the major patch.
メインシナリオをやったり、ハウジングの抽選に応募したりとかすると思うので、2週間空けて出す予定かな。はい。
We are hoping that players would enjoy the main scenario first, and then 6.1 is also when we open up the Ishgard housing. So I'm sure people will want to sign up for like housing plots. So we're going to wait 2 weeks after the launch of the major patch and then release the ultimate duty.
まだまだあってですね 6.1、さっきお伝えしたメインクエスト ID のフェイス対応 2.0 半やって、それ以外のID もちょっとグラフィックスの調整とかいろいろやってます。
So continuing on with the 6.1 series updates, so the main quest, the trust system for A Realm Reborn patch 2.0 main scenario dungeons.
そして新しいリワードシステムとしてですね、キャラクターカードっていうのの、システム実装が、ドーンと始まります。
캐릭터 카드는 뭐요?
And then a new calling card style UI. So this is going to be a new reward type system that we plan to start implementing.
まあこの辺の詳しい内容はね、3月4日からのまたパッチ 6.1 特集パート1、パート2の方でお伝えしていきます。そしてお待たせしたロスガルの、新髪型対応がスタートとなります。
그리고 로스가의 새로운 헤어 나온대.
So for this calling card style UI, this is something that we'll cover in our next two live letters. There's one definitely planned on March the 4th, and we'll do like a 6.1 feature, part 1 and part 2. So we'll delve into details at that time. So next item would be new hairstyles for Hrothgar. Thank you so much for your patience on this.
そしてハウジング、イシアガールドハウジングが開き、お得意様取引はなんとアルフィノ・アリゼのお母様であるアメリアンス編となります。
The next two items is the opening of Imperium or Ishgard housing, and then custom deliveries. You get to meet with Alphino and Alizé's mom, Amelians.
그다음에 커스텀 딜리버리.
新 PVP は
알피노네
またちょっと
알피노 남매네 어머니
6.15 を予定してます。はい。
We had a question about when is the new PvP going to go live. Again, we'll cover this in the upcoming other PLLs, but we are looking at 6.15 timing for that.
まあそれ以外にもですね、透滅戦など多数のものが、まあ透滅戦名前言えないですけど、ありますんで、ぜひご期待ください。ここまでがまあ 6.1 のざっくり概要です。はい。
And of course, new trials, we can't say what, but other updates are planned for the 6.1 series.
イシュガルダハウチング1.2でなよ。
6.2 ですが、こんな感じになってて、まあ一番の注目はやっぱりお知らせしていた、無人島開拓が 6.2 からスタートになります。
So next up is the 6.2 series. This is one of the large, like the anticipated content, I believe, is the Island Sanctuary. That's when we're going to start opening this up.
昨日全体を一通りチェックしましたけど、めちゃくちゃでかいんで規模。だいぶね組み上がってるんでもう。
I had the opportunity to check the overall sort of content yesterday, and it's quite large scale, but I think it's coming along nicely.
またちょっと今日は時間がないのであれですけど、詳しく説明する機会は取ろうと思いますが、基本的には外の世界と全く異なるそこだけで完結できる遊びになってますし、まあゆっくり本当にゆるくやれるので楽しみに待っていただけると嬉しいです。
So I'm afraid we don't have the time to cover it today, but we will take the time at another opportunity so that we can explain the details of this. But it is going to be a different sort of area that you can enjoy, and it's a very self-contained sort of content.
땅 개척까지 시키는구만.
でまあ2.x 残り新生オルゼアの 2.x シリーズのメインクエスト ID を全部対応し、想定編にも突入します。あとは武器強化コンテンツの新しいシリーズをスタートしますとかですね。
So going back to the earlier bullet points, we will be applying the trust system for the 2.x main scenario dungeons, maybe partially into Heavensward. It says here.
ああそうだもうね多すぎて入れてないんですけど、ミラプリの拡張もね 6.1 から第1弾始まるんで言っときます。そういうのよかった。
Oh, we also want to mention we will be expanding on glamours. Glamour ミラプリのごめんなさい、ミラプリはグラマープリズムの方でしょうか。
ね
言えない感じですか。
第1弾はプレート増やすをやっていくまず第1弾。
글래머
so
개수
glamour related
늘리다네요.
updates. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure how to phrase it, so I squeezed it out of Yoshida-san. We will be addressing and expanding upon glamour plates as part of the first glamour related updates in 6.1 series.
まあちょっと全部書ききれないけど、いつもの討伐透滅戦のノーマルと極があるとかいうのは、まあいつも通りやっていくので、まあその辺は書かれてなくてもあると思ってもらえると助かります。
글래머가 늘어나는 건 아주
좋고. Of course, we will have whatever content that you can expect in a patch update, so like new trials, etc. It's not written here because we couldn't fit it all in the slides, but Yes.
収納数増やすトライもしてるから、ごっそりどっかのタイミングで増やします。
And we're also looking at like how to expand upon like the number of sets stored. So we're hoping to find an opportunity to do that update, like not an overhaul, but like an update on that as well.
そしてですね、さりげなく書かれてる新しいこの 6.2 から新しいバトルコンテンツ、タイプが全くこれまでと違うコンテンツを今開発中です。
새로운 배틀 콘텐츠 완전히 새로운 타입의
as part of
던전을
like the
만들고
updates, but
있대요.
it's
뭔데 대체?
a new thing that we're trying to do. It's a dungeon with variable difficulty.
これ難易度可変ダンジョンって今開発コードネームなんですけど、1人から4人でチャレンジできて、1人で行く、2人で行く、3人で行く、4人で行くっていうので、自動的にそれに合わせて難易度がコントロールされるっていうチャレンジ型のコンテンツになります。
한 명에서 네 명까지 갈 수 있는데 인원수에 따라서 난이도가 조정된다고 해요.
But so you can attempt this with 1 to 4 people, and what makes it variable is that if you go in, depending on the number of people you go in with, so 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, the difficulty sort of varies. It will automatically scale. So it's like a content where players can sort of challenge themselves.
まあこちらも組み上がってはきてるんですけど、まだ調整いろいろチェックやってたりするんで、まあ 6.2 に近づいてきたらしっかり特集していきたいと思います。
It is coming along nicely, but and we're still performing checks on the content. So please stay tuned for new information as they become available when we can talk about 6.2.
そして 6.3 になるとですね、メインクエスト ID フェイス対応が争点編をここで完了させる予定です。
이쯤에 이제 그 트러스트 시스템, 페이트 시스템이 상천편이 완료될 예정이고 망궁 세 번째 거 나온다. 딥던전 시리즈 3. 그다음 절 시리즈 5번째 예정이라네요.
でかいのはですね、世界中からですね、ディープダンジョンシリーズの新しいのがやりたいという、お声をたくさん頂戴していたので、今企画をやっている最中です。6.3 で、ディープダンジョンシリーズの第3弾実装予定です。
And then players from around the world had asked
전용시는
about
6.11에
when do we
나온대요.
get a
이거
new
6.36, 그러니까
and
6.3에
so
뭐 나올
we
건가
are
얘기하는 거.
in the planning phases
다섯
at
번째
this time.
절이에요.
We're
용시전제
hoping
아니고.
to launch the third in the
딥던전
series of
그거니까
Deep
88
Dungeons at 6.3 series timing.
そしてですね、すでに、開発スタートして進んでるんですが、Z シリーズの第5弾を、6.3 でリリース予定です。
And then we are already starting to make plans for this, but we do intend on adding one more ultimate duty. So this will be the 5th one in the series.
そしてですね、6.2 でリリースされた、無人島開拓のアップデートももちろん行っていきます。
파파6에 탑 나온지도 기억이 안 나.
Because we will be opening up the Island Sanctuary as of 6.2, at 6.3 series timing, we will continue to update it.
でまあ、4と5はちょっとパッチ 6.4 と5はまとめてのご紹介になっちゃいますが、この4と5でグレン編のメインクエスト ID のフェイス対応を全部終わらせて、まあ、これで、ストーリー上に登場する ID は、全部対応が終わる予定です。
던전 새로운 것도 그 신생 던전 나오는 거
And
두
then
번째 세 번째
next,
나오고
next page covers both 6.4 and 6.5 series, but by this time we aim to complete the trust system implementation into all of the Stormblood main scenario dungeon series, and so that should get through all of Stormblood.
で難易度可変ダンジョンと呼んでる新しいバトルコンテンツシリーズの第2弾とか第3弾も入れていきますし、無人島開拓の開拓エリアを追加したりっていう予定ももう当然ね、我々長期計画で進んでいるので予定されてます。
And then, of course, our Criterion dungeons will see an update. We should have numbers 2 and 3 implemented. And then for Island Sanctuary, at this time, we want to expand upon the area. So we'll have an additional area.
でですね、例えば青魔導士のレベルキャップをどのタイミングにする、解放どのタイミングにするのとか、そういう状況を見ながら調整しているものに関してはどうしてもまだ言えないので、それらもちゃんとどっかのタイミングでやっていきますんで、またそれぞれでですね、パッチのこう特集をお待ちいただければありがたいなと。やらないとかいうわけじゃないんで、ここに書かれてないものはね、まだ詰め切れてないものはちょっと言えないのでさすがに、まあこのあたりはもう全部確定しているのでお知らせしております。
I'm sure some of you might be wondering about, okay, when is the next time the Blue Mage is going to have their level cap increased? And some of these items we need to monitor the situation. And so I'm afraid we aren't able to determine exactly when this is going to happen. But we do intend on doing it. We will share more information when we are going to do like a patch specific like updates live stream. Please note that even if it's not written in the document, it doesn't mean that we're not going to do it. So yeah, there might be information that we're still in the planning phases and we weren't able to solidify at this time. So we will continue to look at the various existing content and provide updates when we can.
まあなんかパッチ情報を出すとみんな細かいところあれはどうこれはどうってやっぱなっちゃうよね。まあ皆さんが思ってることは基本的にやってるんで大丈夫ですよ。
I see that people in the comments are talking about various granular areas of patch updates, and I think it's safe to say that things that we know people are expecting in a regular update will more than likely be included. So I want to make sure that yeah, don't be worried.
まあアルカスソーダラの次のはどうなるの、種族ってどうなるのとかもう全部決まってます。ちゃんとマイパッチやっていくので、まああれかなこれかなって思いながら待っていただけると嬉しいです。
And the tribal quest beyond Arkasodara is, I'm sure, a mystery, but we have a plan. We do have like which group to focus in on, and we do want to have content available per each of the patch. So it'd be great if you could wait, or not wait, but like speculate, kind of imagine which tribe will we be focusing in on.
あとゴールドソーサーも予定してるんですけど、4になるか5になるかまだ決まってないんでちょっと待ってください。
골드 소서도 뭐 해준다네요.
And we do intend on making gold saucer updates, but we still haven't determined if it's going to be 6.4 or 6.5. So that's why we're not mentioning it at this time.
さあというわけでまあ変わらずですね、モリモリでやっていきますよというお知らせでした。
But yeah, just wanted to go through all of these roadmaps just so that we know that we plan to continue providing very hefty updates.
ただですね、一個皆さんにこれを踏まえてですね、ちょっとお知らせをさせてください。
하나 알려주고 싶다네.
But with that being said, allow me to make one announcement.
メジャーパッチのサイクルについてです。
And this is regarding the major patch cycle.
これまでですね、申請スタートからですね、まあずっとできるだけこの 3.5 ヶ月に1メジャーパッチ配信っていうのをまあ
여지까지 했던 거 대충 3.5개월에 메이저 패치 하나로
So of course, since
했었대요.
the relaunch as A Realm Reborn, we've
이게 이제 더
tried
늘어나는
to
건가?
keep this pace of one major patch update per every 3.5 months.
でこれをですね、本当申し訳ないんですが、2週間プラスしてですね、4ヶ月にさせてください。
4개월에 하나씩 한다네요 이제.
And I'm terribly sorry to ask you of this, but we need to extend it by 2 weeks, and so we want to change it so that it's one major patch every 4 months.
난 데는 1년 지나나.
でこの2週間って何かっていうとですね、まあ我々開発内では実装期間っていうのと調整期間っていうので大きく2つあるんですけど、この実装期間にプラスあと1週間 それから調整期間にプラスあと1週間の時間をいただいて、マイメジャーパッチを 3.5 ヶ月でなんとかやってきたのをちょっと4ヶ月までプラス2週させていただけると助かります。
So of course, we have periods of our development cycle where it's development and then implementation, and various adjustments, fine-tuning that we do. So those 2 weeks that we ask of you for your patients is 1 week for additional implementation, and then 1 week additional for fine-tuning. So that makes it that 3.5 months now turns into 4 months.
でですね、夏季休暇期間とか、我々やっぱりサマーバケーションスタッフに渡したりですね、年末年始やっぱり家族とねゆっくり過ごしてほしいっていうのがあるので、夏季休暇期間とか年末年始の場合には、これにプラス1週間ねさせていただくことがあるかなと思います。
And in addition to that, we do have breaks, like summer vacation or summer holidays, New Year's holidays. I'm sure people have family that they would visit over the holidays, and so for those holiday seasons, we might see an additional like 1 week's not delay, but like 1 week's time added as well.
やっぱりここまでその前半の10年間っていうところでもお伝えしましたけど、相当みんなの開発チーム運営チームのモチベーションというところに頼ってやってきたところがあるなと思っていて、それは僕自身の稼働の高さも含めてなんですけど、休みたいというよりはやっぱり適切にみんな健康で健やかに開発に取り組むことでよりクオリティも上がっていくだろう。事実足りてない、無理をしてきたっていうところもあるので、ちょっとそれが理由になってます。
As I explained in the first half, when we were looking back at our first 10 years, we really depended on the motivation of each of the developers that are on the team. And me included, I was moving around and very hands-on with my team. But looking at our schedule and how we work, I do want my team to be healthy and be able to sort of maintain a
이따 2시 반에 영식이긴 한데 제가 이번에 방송을 킬지를 모르겠어요. 왜냐면 제가 이번에 이번에 딜러로 가게 되니 처음으로 딜러로 갔는데 실수가 너무 많아가지고 집중을 좀 하고 싶어서 4층은 빨리 깨야 될 것 같아요. 자꾸 너무 시간도 안 맞고 질질 끌어가지고.
で非常にね皆さん優しいコメントいただけてるんでとても嬉しい。特にスタッフの健康とかね気遣っていただけてるんでとても嬉しいんですけど、これまで 2.0 からねなんとか 3.5 ヶ月でこうやってきたこの実装10何週調整何週みたいなのでやってきたんですけど、ちょっとね比較を持ってきました。
And thank you so much for the kind comments regarding our staff and making sure that you're showing your concern to our staff members. It really warms my heart, and I'll make sure to relay that. But considering what we've been doing in terms of providing an update every 3.5 months since 2.0, and we work with a schedule of like such and such weeks for implementation and whatnot. So we put together this comparison chart for you to take a look.
これまで、企画、開発、調整、デバッグっていうのを、3.5 ヶ月でやってきてたんですけど、
Of course, our development largely is broken down to planning, development, adjustments, and debug. And this is some of the numbers that we've pulled up.
パッチ 3.3 の時が左の列、5.3 の時が右の列です。
So the column on the left is patch 3.3 series timing. And then the column on the right is patch 5.3 series.
왼쪽에 패치 3.3,
コンテンツ数がねそこまで極端にってわけじゃないんですけど、やっぱジョブ数がまずね11だったのが18になってたり、ボス数が作ってるボス数がもう17から23って増えてるんですね。これ当然調整コストめちゃくちゃ増えてるんで、
직업 밸런스 18.
멋있다 나.
나는 팝판 직업 이렇게 많은 줄
So,
몰랐어.
I mean, the number of content, like
아까
types
뭐야,
of
방송
content,
시작하기
may
전에
not have
일러스트
varied
나왔는데
over the years. But if you look
모든
at,
직업들
say,
다
like the
그러는 건
number
난
of
직업이
jobs,
저렇게 많나 이랬어.
from patch 3.3, 11 jobs, we've now jumped up to 18 as of 5.3, which means a lot of different balance adjustments for those. Number of bosses have gone from 17 to 23.
もちろんね、開発スタッフっていうのも皆さんからいただいた月額課金で、どんどん採用してどんどん増やしていて、チーム規模も当然上がってるんですけど、じゃあ人が増えればそんなに簡単に僕ら工場製品作ってるわけじゃないので量産が上がるかっていうとやっぱりそうではない。トレーニングも必要、経験も必要。やっぱりそんなスーパーエースたちが中川とか須藤とかがバンバン育っていくわけじゃないので
Of course, with our development team, thanks to the support via monthly submissions or subscriptions from everybody,
진짜 이런
we are
것까지 다
able
얘기해주는 게임사는 얘네밖에 없는
strengthen
것
our
같아.
team. We were able to hire
무섭다.
additional staff, and so our team has definitely grown. But I mean, we're not in a factory manufacturing, we're not an assembly line. So we require training. We require for our staff to gain experience. Not everybody is a super ace player like Nakagawa or Sudo.
例えばこの開発チーム運営チーム三角形だとした場合に、この三角のスケールはめっちゃ大きくできるんですよ。
はいはいはい。
だけど結局上の方に行くと、どこまで行っても最後は頂点はディレクターとかプロデューサーってなってくると、ここがやっぱそんな簡単には増えないんで、何でもかんでもたくさん調整もチェックもせずに出すってわけにもいかないから、吉田を別に分身させろとかその培養して増やせばって考えもなきにしもあらずだけど、ちょっとまだテクノロジーがそこまで追いついてないんで。
So if you would imagine our sort of team, I guess, our staff, or how we're organized as like a giant triangle. And of course, we can always scale the triangle to be larger, but I mean, it's still a triangle, so the tip is very small. And when you get to like the director and producer level, I mean, we train fantastic people, but like it doesn't grow in numbers as much as like when you scale the lower part of it. And there still requires a lot of adjustments that need to be applied on the things that we do create. And of course, it would be awesome if we can create like multiples of Yoshida. Maybe if we can clone him or like, I don't know. But still, it is quite a challenge.
吉田にハイデリンキックし分割しようって言われてるけど、それ薄くなってんじゃん、一吉田。
一気に14個に。
Somebody's saying, perform the Heidelin kick on Yoshida and sunder him, then we'll have 14 of him. But then, wait, no, but he's sundered, so he's like thinner. Like, you have a diluted version of him.
いやいや、でもね、例えばそのカットシーンの数字なんてね、2時間25分トータルだった自動送りしていくと、パチコーテンだと4時間30分になってるんですけど、当然ですけど、そのいただいた利益で人も増やし、いろんな会社さんにお願いして腕のいい人たちにたくさんカットシーンやっぱ作ってもらってるんですけど、どうしてもねディレクションする側っていうのの人数は限られてくるので、それでももう倍増近い感じですし。
And if we look at the cutscenes, we went from 2 hours 25 minutes to 4 hours and 30 minutes. And this is like if you let the dialogue autoplay. But I mean, we have brought on many talented people onto our teams, but we still require somebody to look at the product that they create. And there needs to be a director that makes sure that we're aligned.
もうなんか面白い、もうなんか能力の薄い吉田のただのやからやんけって
comments still going on about sundered Yoshida, like, well, but what if he's like that's like a low quality Yoshida? It's just a man.
まあというわけでですね、これからもちょっと今日お伝えした内容 7.0 に向かっていろいろやっていきます。パッチの物量というのも頑張ってまた作っていきますし、クオリティとか調整というところも妥協なくねまた進めていきたいとは思うんですが、まあその分ですね、ちょっとこれまでのパッチサイクル3.5 ヶ月にプラス2週させていただいて4ヶ月っていうサイクルでですね、ここから先まだまだ楽しみお届けしていこうと思ってます。
But yeah, we are making various plans leading up to 7.0, and we still want to continue bringing you the different patch updates. And so, with the different elements that we implement, as well as the balancing that we do, the fine tuning, we don't want to compromise any of that. That's why we do want to continue producing the patches to the quality that we hold ourselves up to. So we do want to ask for that initial 2 weeks so that we will have the 4-month patch cycle. But we will continue to bring you regular updates.
まあ本当にあと10年やっていけばとてつもなく長い旅になると思ってます。皆さんとね一緒に今度は20年歩んでいこうってことになるかと思います。
And we strive for another 10 years. This is our goal. And I'm hoping that we will get to a point where we will be celebrating, or like we will be looking back at our journey in our 20th anniversary.
まだまだやりたいことね、チャレンジしてみたいことあります。驚いてもらえることやっていこうと思いますので、ぜひこの先もですね、一緒にまたボッティン作っていただけると嬉しいです。はい。
We do want to do more, take on more and more challenges, bring you more surprises. So I want to continue building this together with you all. So yeah, it would be great if you could continue to keep with us.
はい、では前半。
はい、ありがとうございました。Thank you very much. So this is all about the first half of today's letter live. 今日の前半、プロデューサーレターライブの前半戦はここまでとなっています。
1個忘れた。DC トラベルはいつが結構多くて、
네 맞아요. 마지막에 했었죠.
6.18かな。
어딘 가봤냐, 어딘 가봤냐 그래서.
Sorry, one more thing. We did see a lot of comments about, so when is data center travel going to be implemented?
진짜 이제 모험가 되는 건가?
We are currently
비트전사
looking
아니고?
at 6.18 timing for that.
진짜 약간 이스 같네. 이스한 것 같다. 멈춰졌는데.
ではこの後休憩に入るんですが、ですね、今日は後半戦は、通訳は別の方にお願いすることになっておりますので、あゆみさんがここまでとなります。So before going,
그래서 마지막에 일부러 그랬나? 네가 빛의 전사기다 하지만 너 모험가가 아니냐면서.
Translation for the Q&A part. So that's it for あゆみさん today. So
モ험가로 바꾸려고 하는 건가? 이미지를 좀.
はい、長い間お付き合いいただきありがとうございました。Thank you guys so much for your patience as we navigate through all of this. But yeah, I will see you guys at another opportunity.
ありがとうございます。Thank you very much, あゆみさん。
では僕がね安心してこうゲームシステムの話っていうのを全世界の皆さんにこういつもの調子でお届けできるのは、本当にあゆみさんの高い翻訳スキル、特にね僕の性格を把握した上でのやっぱり、トランスレーションがねもう長くなりますのでね、僕らもコンビを組ませてもらって、ね、なんで本当に助かってます。いつもありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。ここどうやって訳しましょう。
吉田さん Ami-san really knows Yoshida-san's characteristics very well, so it's rely on
아마 다음부터 초란이면 개념도
relying
그거
on Ami-san's translation for when he explains.
끼케야 뭐 쳐맞았는데 뭐야 살아있네. 초란 힘이가 이 정도밖에 안 되겠지.
では今から
초에서 누굴 죽인다기보다는 맞아도 안 죽는 게 초란.
40分再開。
몇 총으로 쐈는데 멀쩡하지? 초란 힘이 있기 때문이다.
이런 거.
살아남기 위한 설정. 모험하기 위한 설정.
でですね、今日の休憩の音もご紹介したいと思います。So, during the break, we have 2 videos today for you to enjoy.
20分あるから1本ならいいやと思ったら2本あんのかよ。
Yeah, we have a 3-second digest preview of all the songs from the upcoming Endwalker soundtrack, and a time-lapse video of mosaic art we created live using screenshots that we were submitted by our players during another broadcast、2本ありまして、1本目は、先日つい最近公開しましたエンドウォーカーのサントラが出ます。それの、3秒ダイジェストの全曲紹介の、トレーラーがありますので、そちらをご覧いただき、
왼쪽에 계신 거 왜 저거 그거예요. CG 처리해가지고 딴 데 계신 분 데려온 거예요. 지금 보면은 화면 다르잖아요. 이거
モザイクアート、皆さんからお送りいただいたスクリーンショットでモザイクアートを作るという企画がありま
두
して、
명은 같은 곳에 있는데 한 분은 딴 데 있는 거를 여기 이렇게 CG를
ご覧いただいて、
이렇게 붙여놓은
ま
거예요
た
지금.
1時40分から再開したいと思います。それでは
자 이제 영상 나오고 이제 휴식인데 저는 여기서 끌게요. 영상 보실 분은 이제 그대로 보면 되고요. 되게 잠깐. 저는 조금 있으면 휴식을 취하도록 하겠습니다. 다들 좋은 주말 보내시고 혹시라도 제가 방송을 또 키게 되면은 와주셨으면 좋겠네요. 뭐 왜 이래? 방송 여기까지 할게요. 안녕.